Hi, welcome. It is Thursday night. It is time for Revolutionary Change. I'm Jen Perelman.
I'm Peter Hager, and you made me stress. No, I'm just kidding. You didn't make me stress.
No, please. You have no idea what that feels like.
Well,
you don't get, it doesn't bother you when it's the other way. But hello, everyone. If you are new, welcome. We have a lot to talk about.
Oh, yeah.
Not the least of which I did forward you what's happening with.
I already mentioned it to Colin just a minute ago. So
the irony of that.
Superman turned into Lex Luthor, I guess. Is that how you describe it?
I knew he was off, like, politically, but this is just a new disgusting level. Really, it's gross. So if you guys are new, please hit the like button. Please subscribe. But what Peter and I are talking about, if you don't know, actor Dean Cain has taken a job with ICE. So somebody who played Superman, who arguably stood for all people of the world.
Can we just get it out of the way? There is only one Superman. There's just a bunch of others that have played him.
I know. But the fact that you would play that role and by the way, we could also address that Superman really is the ultimate illegal alien.
Yeah, especially in lieu of the recent film that just came out, which pretty much clarifies that Superman is on the side of Palestine and not Israel.
And yet, what do we have? We've got actor Dean Cain being all happy to join ICE.
You know, the irony is that Dean Cain is the first actor to play Superman post Christopher Reeve. It is amazing how, in a way, you had Christopher Reeve at the apex of what Superman was all about. And then in retrospect, Dean Cain is basically the worst example of what Superman is about. And they've basically been trying to put their way back ever since. Although Terry Hatcher was certainly a very attractive Lois Lane, I give him that. But that doesn't mean that the show was any good. I didn't watch Lois and Clark. I know it was a popular show in the 90s, but Dean Cain has been living off of that role his entire life. Like, there has not been anything else that he can hang his hat on except for that. And the fact is, he has been, and I was saying to Colin, I'm like, look, why do I think he took this job with ICE? Because he doesn't have anything else. He has no other prospects. And,
well, he clearly has to have time on his hands if you want to commit to something. I mean, he clearly,
whatever work he has obtained, you know, B-movie, Hallmark movie type stuff that he's fallen into over the years. I remember that Dean, it's funny, I would say probably the most recognizable role that he's had post Superman was he played Scott Peterson when they did the Scott Peterson, Lindsay Peterson murder mystery story on whatever, Lifetime or whatever it was. And here's a guy who has not really had much in the way of roles. And again, he uses such inflammatory language. So I could see a situation where he kind of went to Trump and was like, look, I need a job. Be like, listen, I think you would make a really great spokesperson for ICE. Why don't you join? We'll get you a really great job. It'll be a great thing. We'll pay you lots of money. He's like, oh, absolutely. Why not? I mean, what other scenario is there? I think it's the only one that makes sense.
Well, have you seen what they're paying? I
don't know exactly what they're paying, but I know they're paying.
They're paying. I want to say, first of all, they're giving them, I want to say it's either a $40,000 or $50,000 signing bonus. Right up front. And they're making, I just saw a woman who did a clip, and she was a public school teacher with a master's degree. And she was comparing what she makes as a 13-year, 15-year teacher with a master's. And it's less than what somebody starting out for ICE makes. So I want to say they're making like 60 at least, but I don't think that it's a year. They make so much. It's like per day. And it's a lot of money.
If you want to understand the concept behind the big, beautiful bill and how you can see it occurring in real time, this bill was passed, never should have been passed, but it passes, and a substantial portion of that money is earmarked specifically for ICE.
Correct.
by doing so, they end up giving out these salaries. And while generally speaking, there may be a lot of people who may not necessarily want to work for ICE, but they're going to take the job now because it pays an insane amount of money. Start at $80,000. That's incredibly
And I'm telling you, and a huge signing bonus.
Yeah. And imagine what type of a signing bonus somebody like Dean Cain is getting for putting himself out there publicly saying, oh, yeah, I'll join ICE. Why not?
Good. Let that be his legacy. People, you know what people choose to have their legacy be speaks everything I need to know about them, you know?
Oh, I agree.
I don't, the fact that everything that's going on in the world and you choose to double down on the least of these. Yeah. Get the fuck out of here. Like there's just not, I don't even have the mind capacity to understand that.
Well, it is a reflection in many ways of all the different distractions that will get thrown in front of us. I've always felt that ICE was a big distraction. You're not actually dealing with the issues of immigration if you're not dealing with multinational corporations. Let me assure you, there is no one that is happier that ICE has been given this type of money than the multinational corporations. In fact, a lot of people that they're kicking out of the country are people that have simply spoken badly, particularly about Israel. That seems to be the biggest issue that the powers that be have taken when it comes to, their opinion, if you will, about why ICE needs this much money. In reality, what we need in this country is a living wage and universal health care. And this is something we've talked about at length forever. If you want to deal with the immigration problem as you see it, then your biggest concern should be, why do we have people coming to work in this country that are willing to work for pennies on the dollar? It's because multinational corporations have bought our government and they are not required to pay a living wage. So you think by kicking a whole bunch of people out of this country that it's going to solve the problem? It may solve the problem in specific places temporarily, but you're going to repeat the same cycle. You wait until all of the Israelis start coming into this country. In fact, that's probably happening already.
I honestly, they're here. Okay. They started really mass migrating in 2014, actually, to specifically South Florida. I've noticed that a huge surge, which does correlate to Netanyahu getting back in his current capacity. So I don't know. So, and the unfortunate part is that the ones who have come here pre-October 7th since then are the more moderate people.
They are.
And yet it's still
suck.
They still suck. It's not good.
No.
It's not good at all. So it's definitely going to start getting worse and worse. And certain places around the world are really feeling it. I feel bad for the people in Cyprus. I feel bad for the Greeks. And, they're people, even in Spain, it's like they're sick of this nonsense. They don't want them there. Thailand doesn't want them there. I saw a whole thing about that. Thailand is about over them.
Before we get into our main stories for tonight, I do want to bring up the social media post that I just put out because you bring up a very good point. You have all of these countries, including Greece, which just came out in a very forceful way regarding Israel. And remember, for a very long time, Athens has always been kind of that go-between with Tel Aviv. It's always been that area, especially for Americans who are coming to Israel, that this has always been sort of like a landing spot. Well, it seems that that's changing. As Catnip just points out, the mayor of Athens is showing balls. That's good.
Good.
And we need to see that. But as I pointed out, and this is important, guys, in 1 month, the UN General Assembly will hold their 80th annual conference in New York City. At that meeting, Western nations, France, the UK, and Canada intend to recognize Palestine as a state. If Netanyahu boycotts these nations in response, Israel will be isolated from most of the world with few exceptions in Western Europe, Asia, and the United States. The future of global trade and commerce will be heavily influenced by BRICS. All member nations officially recognize Palestine. If our country does not sever ties with Israel, we run the real risk of significant economic collapse. As Jen says, we must lance our greatest ally off like a boil before it's too late. And that's the facts.
I love you quoting me to me.
Well, of course. I'm speaking to our wide-reaching audience here. We have to make them feel, part of the conversation, which they are. And if you just scroll down slightly, this was taken from World Affairs, and that he has specifically stated, Netanyahu has specifically stated that Israel says it will boycott all nations that will recognize Palestine. Hey, listen, man, don't threaten all of us with a good time. We can't wait for you guys to be isolated.
Oh my God, please go. But the problem is nobody wants you. Nobody wants any of those people. Nobody. And the people that are getting saddled with them, and I am including myself in that as a pity party. I will, because the infestation down here in South Florida is real. But it's one of the reasons I need to get out of here. Actually, it's definitely huge. But what is he? Go ahead. You boycott all those nations. You do that. You show them.
They're not going to show them. They're not going to show them anything. They're just going to continue to prove that this is a real problem until they basically create their own little nation, which I believe will happen in Southeast Florida, unfortunately. For those of you who live down there, it is what it is. But guys, very important. We currently have 192 watching, but only 83 of you have hit that like button. I got to say, if you like our channel and have any sympathy for our lack of growth,
hit the like button and subscribe. It's free.
Yes, it really does help. So if you could
wait, can I just say something about the last thing before you move on?
Yes.
Because this is why people say I interrupt you, and I understand that I interrupt you, but it's because if I don't say it, then I'll forget it, and then we'll be on to the next thing, and it'll be irrelevant. I just shout out to Ireland. Shout out to Ireland.
Canada wants it too, Jen.
You know what? I have the problem is that unfortunately you guys are not that far behind us. Like I was just seeing, as Brett was saying in the chat. I don't know that that's the safest place necessarily to be either, but yes, thank you. And I do like the Canuckies. I'm all happy with the Canuckies, but the Irish people, I can tell you, as far as the ones that anybody that I met in the entire time I was there, the idea that any of them would give a rat's ass about Israel boycotting them is just so funny.
Well, one of the main reasons why the United States must, again, there's a difference between our elected officials and us. And I mean that from the standpoint of the overwhelming majority of the country does not want to do business or does not want to be tied at the hip, one and the same, with the state of Israel. The powers that be want it specifically for money and power purposes, but that's probably the case in almost any circumstance when it comes to global politics. In this case, the inhumanity of the state of Israel is reaching a breaking point when even MSDNC decides to cover stories like this young little boy who was seeking aid.
We know this story, though, right? Because of...
Jen, would you like to introduce, please, by all means?
No. But did we cover this?
We have not covered it. We have not covered it.
No, I don't need to get into it then, but it's devastating to me. This is that little boy we haven't spoken to Anthony Aguilar. I'd love to, but he has been making the rounds. So I don't know if people have been following that. I didn't realize it was on MSNBC. Please continue.
Here we go.
Thank you for having me, and good evening, everybody. What I witnessed on the ground in Gaza can be described as nothing more than, an apocalyptic wasteland. It's human suffering, and for anyone that says that there's no starvation or that the population of Gaza is not at the brink or has already crossed the brink of famine, that is irresponsible rhetoric. and that is only serving to starve the population even further. The population is starving, and the population is desperate, and the population needs aid immediately.
Lieutenant Colonel, could you talk a bit about your timeline when you got to Gaza? You recently retired, you got to Gaza, and what was the first warning sign that something was amiss in how the aid was being distributed? And what were the rules of engagement that you were given as a security contractor on the ground?
Well, from my military experience, one of the initial concerns that I had once we got into Gaza was that we had not been given a clear and briefed and reviewed rules of engagement. We had not received any standard operating procedures for the use of the non-lethal munitions. We had not received any rules on escalation of force, because we were going to be dealing with such a large population of civilians and primarily civilians. We were not there as combatants. We were not there as belligerents in the war. We were there as those that were there to secure humanitarian aid, and we would be engaging with the civilian population. And without having rules of engagement, escalation of force, standard operating procedures, that is a dangerous precedence. Furthermore,
the only reason I believe that MSNBC is covering this is because the Democratic Party, as we mentioned, is destroying itself completely for how they have conducted business over the past decade. I mean, of course, this goes back to obviously what happened with Bernie Sanders and Debbie Wasserman Schultz, but it's been a succession of things that has happened. And to me, there is no coming back from genocide. When you have so systematically gone along with all of this, and so much of the party is bought off by it, I think in their mind, they just rock bottom, and they don't know what else to do other than maybe in their mind think, well, maybe we can endear ourselves to some people out there and try to claw our way back if we actually show what's really going on there. Because clearly Fox News and OAN and those networks, they're not going to cover it like this. But like I said, they're only doing this because it has completely destroyed them politically. And they waited almost 2 years to do any type of legitimate coverage. And hats off to Anthony Aguilar. He has been nothing short of amazing. And of course, his interview with Katie and a few others has been nothing short of exceptional as well.
I just want people to recognize something that I've noticed about him from right off the bat, which does go towards the credibility factor. They're going to try to smear him. They already have started stuff, and he's already defended what they've said, and it's already just ridiculous, them going after him. He's beyond credible. But the first things he noticed when he tells his story, these are all things that are tactical rules-based things that he's noticing, violations of this rule and that rule and this law and this thing. And he's not even coming at it originally from any biased perspective. And even when he told his story about accepting this job, he went over there thinking he's helping feed people that are in a humanitarian crisis. He didn't really have a preconceived notion of Palestine. And so most of the stuff he started noticing at first was just levels and levels of incompetence that he did not understand how this was being put together this way. And that to me just makes him so much more credible, that he had no preconceived idea.
Couldn't agree more.
All of us were in Gaza under a tourist visa. So when we entered Israel, we entered on a tourist visa, and we were expected to do our work in Gaza, armed, securing aid, and engaging with a very large starving population as tourists.
Anthony, can you tell us about the young boy, Amir?
So Amir was one of the Palestinians that came to site number 2 on the 28th of May. And as you can see in the pictures that were shown in the beginning, we later found out that he's 10 years old, and I have I'll follow up with how we learned that. But this young boy, in this photo, he looks to be.
I want this, as I've done several times over the past 2 years and will continue to do, I want this image to be sieged in your brain.
Oh, it is. I will never get this kid out of my head for the rest of my life.
So this kid ended up kissing the hand of the very people that shot him dead shortly thereafter because he decided that he needed to be as grateful as humanly or degradingly humanly possible to thank them for giving him some food so that he can live. And how do they repay him? They blew him away.
And by the way, his family has not been able to claim his body yet.
Of course not. And they never will. As I said, our goal, we can't stop what Israel is doing to the Palestinians. But what we can do as Americans especially is combine forces, put all differences aside, break the back of the Israel lobby in this country. Trust me, guys, they have a lot of money and a lot of power. But you know what they don't have? They don't really have that many people. In fact, a lot of the Christian Zionists, as far as I can tell, are just scared shitless because of the environment that they're brought up in. Tracy Malone, who's done an amazing job as a guest on our channel, has shown just that. People need to have a path forward. You know what I would be planning if I were you guys? Anyone who can get to New York City in September to get to the UN General Assembly meeting, there needs to be the biggest protest outside of that venue showing support for Palestine that you can possibly show. That I'm not a big proponent of protests. That's a protest that I hope universally people would be on board with if they could be.
Boy, you know, in this photo, he looks to be, you know, maybe 6 or 7, emaciated. He was with the crowd and he walked over to us, and you see he's got his small items of aid. He doesn't have a bag. He's got some rice, some items that he picked up off the ground, and he beckons to us. There's another contractor standing next to me on my left. And at first we thought maybe he was hurt or he needed assistance or he wanted more food, which we didn't have. But he walked up to us and he extended his hand and he walked up. You see the contractor standing next to me, and he kissed his hand, and then he kissed my hand, and I then put my arm on his. I put my hand on his shoulder to comfort him, to tell him, you know, we care about you, and the world's not going to forget, and you're not forgotten. And when you think about, he was there with no parents, he was there with no one, he was there alone, and he set down the items that he had, and he placed his hands on my face, and, you know, his hands were very frail. His fingernails were dry and cracked from the obvious malnutrition. His skin tight and dehydrated. And if anyone says that these children, these human beings aren't starving, shame on you, because they are, and I've seen it. He then kissed me and he said thank you in English and stepped back, and you know, I felt like maybe there's hope here. Maybe that there's an opportunity that we can do good. He joined the rest of the group that was leaving, because at that point the contractors began what had been the inherited practice of pushing the civilians off the site with tear gas and pepper spray and stun grenades, which gets the group going. It makes them panic, and as they're leaving the site, rushing. On this particular site where the IDF had their position where they would shoot at the crowds to contain them along the route going back towards the coast. From that particular spot, it's very difficult to see that exit from where the IDF position is. These sites were put in a very bad location. It puts the IDF at risk. It put us at risk. And this young boy was amongst those that were gunned down on the road back to the Morag corridor to the coast.
It's very, very difficult to take it.
But
we have to. Our job is to bear witness, as Jenna said. It is heartbreaking, but I think in many ways, you know, when we talk about what real bigotry looks like, it's always been this othering of. It's not just that it's brown-skinned people. It's this whole, as I've said, about the Zionist doctrine. It's ethnic, cultural, religious, and social superiority. that they believe that they have. And when you believe that you are superior and that these are expendable people, just like expendable animals, expendable land, expendable air, expendable clean water, that's what people like this feel. Now, I'm not saying all of them feel this way that are participating, but the fact of the matter is there is a lot of money and power involved in this. And a lot of people in positions of power are willing to look the other way. I don't see Cory Booker, for example, as an evil person. He's just a coward. He's a complete failure of a human who is a coward because, in my opinion, he's worse than somebody like Wasserman Schultz. Wasserman Schultz is a Zionist of the fullest extent. She is an ethnic, she believes in her ethnic superiority as a Jew. But somebody like Cory Booker is just a coward because for him, his career and his standing in New Jersey and federal politics is more important than the lives of kids like Amir. Kids like Amir are dead because of people like Cory Booker who have no spine. But let him go and stand on the Senate floor again and do a whole dance for 8 hours about what an angry person he is about how Trump is conducting business. Trump merely exposes the entire hypocrisy of the whole system.
I don't know that I agree that something isn't evil just because it's not blatant or overt. I think that if you're supporting this and not just supporting this, but really thriving off of it. I mean, he lives the life, he really gets to thrive in that life and he likes it. And he just likes to be a man about town. And I'm sure he's a very likable guy. And so that sort of then, I guess, excuses him from being labeled evil. And I don't know that because I don't think it's a matter of any person being evil as much as it's people doing evil. And I think that arguably he's doing a lot of evil and that however you categorize him, it doesn't matter. I'd like to say a couple of things. One, people in the chat, simmer down. Okay. Seriously, simmer down in the chat. There's no need. Just be nice. Just be nice. And for the people who comment on our clips about me interrupting Peter, I want to point out a couple of things because I know I do, but I just let him go on there for a while so you could see that I can make my point as to why sometimes it has to happen. Peter will pontificate and he will get back around to the point, but he'll take you all the way from, we just watched this video through Cory Booker and the whole thing. And if I don't say something, I'll never remember like what it was we were talking about. And it really is the case. So I want people to understand, like when I do that, it's because I know he's moving on to something else and that I will forget or I won't even. And so that's why. That is what I wanted to share. Thank you.
I don't care if you interrupt me. It's all out of good fun. If honestly, this was, remember, we do this live. We'll do it live. Colin, please check your phone.
But there were some comments. I notice comments on our clip sometimes, and people do not like it. But I feel like saying if you really knew our dynamic and the fact that I'm a pothead and I'm the short-term memory, and if I don't say it, and then he's on the next thing, so I feel like I say it, I do it in the interest of the conversation, not to suppress the conversation, which I think is a difference. Like I don't do it to stop you. You know what I'm saying? And I just don't think people get that.
Well, I'm not going to address, we're not going to address South Park tonight. I will do that on Saturday because
please
consideration. I will not do that. However, I do have a clip if Colin is ready with it. As I've said before, I want you all to remember the people that aided and abetted a genocide. There are those who have been silent. We know who they are. There are people that are in South Florida that we've pointed out. It's not just Wasserman Schultz, although she's the worst, but there are plenty of others. Sheila Sherflus McCormick is somebody who should be, rightfully so, dragged for how she's conducted herself. She decided not only to take that money, but to meet with Netanyahu in person. There is no forgiving that, Sheila, and I think you're a fine lady. And I love the staff that works for you. But you know what? That doesn't entitle you to be in federal office if what you're going to do is sacrifice innocent children for your career. Not an excuse. And that's not an excuse for anybody else, because I actually like you. I can't wait for Jared Moskowitz to get his 5'3" ass dragged out of politics.
Just because I always think one of the funniest things that I would always do as like a candidate is I would always make sure to be like tall above people that were like, yes. And I know that if I was going to go be somewhere near him, I would absolutely wear heels and stand and look over his little head.
Let me assure you, Jen's about 5'7", 5'8".
Excuse me. I am 5'9", and I've always been 5'9". The fact that you don't know that is kind of sad, but okay. I'm 5'9". I'm 5'9".
Yes. Well, us 6 feet tall people sometimes have to look down and we can't tell. Anyway, my point is that Jen is 5'9".
I am 5'9". I've not started shrinking yet.
And Wasserman Schultz is legitimately 5 feet if she's that tall. And I'm always skeptical of people in power that are short. I am always skeptical of them in terms of what their intentions are and how they conduct business. And so Moskowitz is one of those people who is a Zion-Nazi in South Florida, and he's a proud Zion-Nazi. He puts that out there constantly about how proud he is to support Israel and how much he hates Palestinians. There will come a time where we will remember how these people conducted business, such as these people.
Okay, this is so ridiculous, though. I mean, the AI is just...
But you see, the one with Charlie Kirk, I'm not sure that that's fake.
Ted Cruz and the tie.
Mike Johnson, Mike Tiny Johnson.
Oh, it's just funny. Oh, that is funny.
But you know, the funny thing about that is that,
and wait, people are asking, is Debbie's 5'0"? She's like, I mean, and then just for reference, because Medea's shorter than Debbie.
Yeah, Medea's
and Medea's probably, yeah, Medea might not be 5 feet.
4'10".
I don't know.
Yeah, it's not like 4'11".
Yeah, but Medea in here, she's 10 feet tall, man.
Absolutely, she is. Absolutely,
she is so fierce.
And one thing I remember when there were a couple of events where Jen and Debbie were like kind of near each other, I always thought Debbie would never, ever allow herself to get too close to where Jen was standing.
Because if there was a picture, it would be bad.
Absolutely. And that's also why Jen, of course, hates all of those Democratic Party galas. I don't blame her. I can't stand them either. But if she would, because Jen is legitimately just under 6 feet tall if she's wearing heels at an event.
Yeah. So, I mean, I'm formidable looking.
So Wasserman Schultz only wears flats. Like, she does not wear any type of heels. And so,
I understand that. Let me tell you something. I will give that woman crap for basically everything, but I will not give her crap for that, because I wouldn't in that job either. Would not.
Absolutely. And so I just want to preface that. I think that is very important that we preface that, because if you are in her presence, I mean, you tower over her in a good way. And when talking about politics, we do not live in a fair and just system. If we did, somebody like Jen clearly would be a congresswoman and Debbie would not. But that's not what our system is about. So when people talk about, oh, you should run for this, you should run for that. Oh, yeah? Are you sure about that? Because I don't think you fully understand how the system works. That's what a lot of people miss. It's that system's not just. What is just is our justly awesome group of people that are here. And we have to give an early shout out to everybody, because we've already got 7 super chats. We want to give a shout out.
Wow.
Are here. Make sure to go to patreon.com/revolutionary change for as little as $5 a month.
Oh, we have a new person. Hold on.
Is it on the 5? Is it on the 10?
Hold on. I'm going to find it. I got to put it on there. Here it is. Nope, that wasn't it. Hold on. Okay. New $5 member, Rob.
Okay. Just Rob?
Just Rob.
Okay, just Jen.
Not like just Jen.
So Rob has officially been added to the list.
Rob, thank you for joining. Thank you for being a patron. And guys, the thing about if you're a member on Patreon, or if you are a member here on YouTube, then you are able to participate when we do call-ins, because those are things that are for members only. I mean, as we're growing, we could come up with other stuff that's, member stuff.
Well, suggestions are always welcome, guys. Come on, let's get to the 300 live viewer mark. We have got 285 in the stream as we speak. We're only 40 minutes in, which is kind of early to have such a high number, which is awesome. And 182 of you have hit the like button, which is good, but it could be even better. So if you would be so kind, it would be tremendously appreciated. JG1982, thank you so much for the 2-month membership as a YouTube member. Jen, come back to Texas. Somebody has requested of you to do.
You know what? I loved living in Texas. I was very happy there. I lived in Texas for 6 years.
I don't know if I would live in Texas, but I do like visiting Texas from time to time. It depends on where.
You can't say that. That's like saying I would, because Texas is the size of a country, right? Yes. So there's parts of Texas that I wouldn't live in. Like I would never live anywhere near the Metroplex. But and I know you don't mind it up there, but I wouldn't. But I loved living in San Antonio.
I love North Texas, but I couldn't stand Houston.
No, I don't like Houston either. San Antonio, I was very happy living there. I really liked San Antonio.
San Antonio has very good food, Tex-Mex especially.
Well, it has very good food and Mex. The Mexican food. I try to explain to people that like a lot of the families that live in that area have been living there since before that was part of this country.
Before when it was still part of Mexico.
Right. Absolutely. And so that's when you get people that are wanting to, I don't know, deport people who don't speak English, who were here before us.
The state of land spoke Spanish, of course, because it's American ignorant exceptionalism of the worst kind.
Anywho, so in San Antonio, there is a very sizable original Mexican and descendant population, which is really cool to me. So I liked it. And because of that, there was really good Mexican food, and if you know me, so that's a win.
It is a win. Sailor Jerry Swallow, thank you for the 2 Canadian A. Remember the little boy, Amir. Yes, we certainly will. Jim Talib, thank you so much for the 199 super sticker. Really appreciate your support, my friend. Emily Sigmund, thank you for the 2 Canadian A. Petition idea, please boycott Israel. Please boycott us, Israel. Yes, please. Israel, please boycott us. Please boycott us.
Right. Please. We don't come here.
Yeah, no, really. Don't threaten us with a good time.
No.
And we are totally in favor of you boycotting whoever you want. Please do not shy away.
He really can't read the globe. By saying something like that.
He can't read the globe. He is the globe.
Can't read the globe.
Piano Man, thank you so much for the $5. Always great to see you. Appreciate you being here. Our lovely Josie Justice, thank you so much for the $10. Cheers to the whistleblowers.
Josie.
Be strong. We concur. And of course, JG1982 with the $5. Anthony also said on Katie's show, he also kissed him on the forehead after his face and also said thank you in English.
Yes.
Yeah.
I'd love to talk to him. And, it isn't a matter of reaching out, but when people are in that position where they're really working it and making the circuit, and for the same thing, Chris Smalls as well right now, it's really hard to get on the radar. It is, because he's on MSNBC, and even going on with Katie. I mean, Katie is way bigger than we are. So, we're small potatoes. Yeah.
But we're growing.
We are growing. And again, these are people that I do think would be happy to come on, but I don't need to be in hounding in that sort of getting an exclusive for a few reasons. One, we're not journalists.
I'm not into
I don't need to.
Actually, I think we're journalists to a degree, but
we're media. We're media.
Yeah. We're not investigative journalists.
We don't do firsthand reporting.
Yeah. That's different. That's different.
Right. So
that's real stuff.
That's what I'm saying. So if we were that, then I would fight hard to get those interviews and get on those people the minute that you could and all that. But we're not that. And so it's not necessary to do that. That's how I feel.
I think okay. So for those of you who know, I'm just going to say this on the air because it's just funny. For those of you who know, I am friendly with Nomiki Konst, and then all of a sudden this afternoon, who starts following us on Twitter? Mayor de Blasio.
Are you serious?
Serious, yeah. That's
just funny. Today, Bill de
Yeah,
Blasio started following us?
Yeah, couple hours ago.
That's so strange, right?
I mean, we could get him on, I'm sure.
Yeah, but I thought about that when we were thinking, when she was going to be coming on, and it's just like, but why? Why?
Just, if he's trying to help
to
Zohran,
just sit there and throw softballs and play party crap.
No.
Silliness.
I mean, it would only be about Zohran. It wouldn't be for, I mean, listen, he's got his own stuff. He's still dealing with some scandal stuff from when he was the mayor. So no one is clean. But I will say this. Is de Blasio dirty the way that Eric Adams is dirty? Absolutely not.
I think of the mayors that I've seen in that city in my lifetime, yeah, I find de Blasio to be the least offensive. Now, he very well could be extremely incompetent and was a horrible mayor. I have no commentary on that. But from an outsider perspective of filth, corruption, and just disgustingness, he's the least offensive of the mayors that they've had.
Yeah. I mean, when you consider what comes out of New York City, when you consider what comes out just out of New York City politics in general, Anthony Weiner, I mean, there's so many bad people. Anthony Weiner really fit. I don't want to get to world's most tasteless jokes, but if you've ever heard the joke about the Jewish guy who walked into a wall with an erection, I mean, Anthony Weiner would fit that joke if there ever.
I know the joke. We don't.
You're a scummy person. You deserve it. That's the bottom line. So, of course, when we think about Zohran and what he's dealing with right now, he's got another layer that he has to deal with. Because apparently the Donald has decided that he's going to get involved and he's going to try to get Zohran out of the race. I don't know how he thinks he's going to do that. I don't know what new law they're going to come up with because, again, everything is just play it as you go kind of thing. But Zohran is not backing down, nor should he. And this is what he had to say about Trump potentially lending a hand to his frenemy, Andrew Cuomo, to make sure that Zohran does not win the mayoral race in a few months.
New Yorkers are looking for a leader who will stand up and protect them when the Trump administration continues its policies of tearing at the fabric of our city. Whatever Donald Trump seeks to do to influence the outcome of this election, I have more faith in New Yorkers themselves.
I do too. In fact, he's not really liked in New York City. So I don't know what he thinks he's going to accomplish. I mean, it really has come to a level of desperation that I think they're kind of running out of ideas at this point. I mean, we both agree, you would agree, right, that they're trying to drag Adams out of the race at this point on a legal technicality at this point?
Yeah, I mean, look, the establishment got together and decided that as to between Cuomo and Adams, they're better served. Cuomo's pulling better numbers. And so, now it's just a matter of making Adams an offer he can't refuse to get out of the race. I mean, that's what this sounds like. But they're not going to be able to do anything about Zohran. And it's fun watching them try. I find it very entertaining. But they're not going to be able to find anything on him, or they already would have.
Well, there's always something in the closet you haven't seen. So
if there was the slightest speck on this gentleman right here, it would be over already. There's nothing on him. He is so squeaky clean. There is no way. And guys, if you're new and you don't realize that when we ran in our campaign, I found out that Debbie Wasserman Schultz spent $30,000 doing an investigation into me and doing a background check and looking for junk and seeking skeletons, right? She spent 30 grand. Can you imagine how much money they've spent digging into him?
Well, they spent a lot of money, but they're going to have to come up with something a little bit more creative, and they're going to stop him. That's all.
I don't think so. But I do think it's funny. And the more that they do, and it's just so fun to watch them spin their wheels. But yeah, and he's great, which concerns me from another perspective, not from they're concerned. The things they're concerned about are all the things that I love. What concerns me is that he is so smooth.
Well,
he's Obama level smoothness and in dealing with this stuff. And that, we'll see.
as long as he doesn't break any promises, as long as he,
I know.
that's again, we give him the benefit of the doubt, but I also believe, this is just my opinion, this is a completely different situation than him attempting to run for federal office versus becoming the mayor of a city to set precedent. And on top of everything else, he is unabashedly pro-Palestine in the Zionist haven of the United States. There's no more powerful place. I mean, yes, there is a substantial portion of them in Southeast Florida, but where do you think most of them come from? They come from New York.
No, they come from another planet.
Well,
I want to, but what, and
New York is another planet.
New York is another planet. But what more to that is that for people don't realize, New York has the second largest Jewish population on the planet. New York City has the second largest Jewish per capita population on the planet outside of Israel. And the majority of the Jewish people support him. So it's significant, obviously, in the younger groupings, but the majority of Jews in the city that are eligible to vote for him support him. So it's not gonna be able to work.
And on top of everything else, and I know this hasn't been talked about a lot, because we know how things went down in the past and how things should have gone down if Bernie did what he should have done. But there is no question that whether people will admit it or not, there is the sore loser factor in Cuomo running in the general election. People who are just casual observers of all of this is looking at it and saying, didn't he beat you in the primary? Why are you running again? Like, to me, there are a lot of voters who are going to look at that and say, I'm not on board with that. Like, Zohran did what he was supposed to do. That's why I said from the beginning, I thought it would be smarter if they all just went, all in on Eric Adams, make or break, so to speak.
I knew that wouldn't work.
No, the egos.
I knew Cuomo would be more popular than Adams.
Turns out that is the case, but in this case, neither one is moving. And I think, again, just to the average observer, it reeks of desperation. And now Trump is trying to get involved. That just makes Zohran that much more popular. Again, he
knows it. He knows this.
It's the Streisand effect. This is Streisand effect on full display.
And we're happy to help.
Whether it be in the previous presidential election or whether it be through this primary race, that they do not want to support our current president's vision of a New York City that is ripping immigrants from their homes, that is detaining New Yorkers on the basis of political expression, that in fact what they want is someone who can stand up to an authoritarian administration and to the billionaires that gave us that administration.
That's it.
Yeah, he's very smooth and he's very smart politically. He has not wavered from his message. He always brings it back to what he's trying to do. He stays on point. He never lowers himself in any way. And yet he makes them look like fools every time.
Vera, what you have to understand and why this race is so significant is that if Zohran wins, he immediately becomes the de facto leader of a broken party. There is no one else. He's all by himself. He can mold in whatever direction he wants, especially New York politics. You know who's one of the people who actually desperately wants him to win is AOC. Alex wants him to win more than anyone else because she wants partially that spotlight off her ass, because she knows that everyone has daggers for her. The second he takes that position, she's no longer the number one politician in New York. She's not. It's him. He gets the crown now. She's just a congresswoman. Who the hell is she? He's the chief executive of the biggest city in the world. That's serious power.
I don't think it's 'cause she wants a spotlight off of her. I think it's she wants the spotlight on her, and she thinks that she's cozied up enough and has enough of a little partnership there that will help her. That's just what it's about. It's about her promoting her.
Perhaps, and you know what? Maybe it will help her in New York. But overall, I mean, I think the New York mayor's office controls like $6 billion. Like he is in a legitimate position to change the city.
Yeah.
Like, he is. Will he? We'll find out. He has a little bit more to say.
Same billionaires who funded more than $20 million in attack ads over the course of the primary, and who today are continuing to bring that kind of money together to oppose our vision for making the most expensive city in the United States of America affordable.
I mean, you've got Jerry Nadler coming out and saying he is our nominee. I am supporting him. And the reason he's the nominee is because cost of living in New York City is untenable. And that's it. And that's why he won.
Has anyone else come out and supported him? That's party?
Anybody of the stature of Nadler or AOC? No. I think there was like one other Congress member that came out in support. But guys, they're going down with the AIPAC ship. That's what they're doing. They are going to go down with it. And we must never forget that. Because there is going to come a point where they are going to act like, oh, I was totally on board with this all along. They do not realize how much politics is changing, and it can change quick. It really can. You know, people got so excited about Bernie and what he represented, but I think for many of us, we kind of needed to go through this whole experience of not trusting so easily, but also recognizing the power that we bring to the table as we the people, more so than anything that the so-called establishment would bring. But make no mistake, the one thing that I have not seen Zohran do, and I don't expect him to do, I just don't see him as being that rally. He's not the rally monkey for the Democratic Party. That's not him. He doesn't give off that vibe. That his primary concern is, how are we going to grow the Democratic Party back to a strong and viable party again? No, I think his primary concern is, how can we improve the lives of New Yorkers? I think that's his primary.
So. I do. I think, look, so far, thus far, I have no reason to not find him well-intended, right? So I have no reason to not give him grace. There are certain things that are red flags, not the least of which was, his comms director hiring decision. There are definitely things that I am aware of, but until he actually does or doesn't do what we hope he'll do, I'm kind of, I'm trying to just stay open-minded about him.
Well, it's not even so much what we hope, it's what we frankly expect. That's what it is. We do expect. And we should expect. These are public servants. That's what they're supposed to be.
In theory.
And speaking of New York, Colin, please grab that cover.
I think there's a better way to do it. So, guys, I think it's this, but I think if we do it, but that's just like, I feel like we've got to have a better way of doing this.
Well,
I guess no, even the fact that it just looks like the screenshot is sort of like we're so amateur. But guys, we are going to be speaking with Stacy Horn. She is the author of her recent book, which I believe came out in January, is The Killing Field of East New York, the first subprime mortgage scandal. And I can't, and I'm
a white collar crime spree and the collapse of an American neighborhood.
Yes. Now I have been audiobooking, which is why hence I don't have a hard copy, but there's a lot of interesting things about this. And really the book breaks down historically. Each chapter is another segment of time about East New York, which up until this book, I didn't know what East New York was. And Peter, you're from the area. Do you know what East New York is?
Well, listen, I know East New York because the toughest SOB that ever boxed in the history of the country comes from East New York.
Okay, well, we're okay. So, guys, our guest is Stacy Horn. She is an author and a journalist, and welcome.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Our friend Ken McCarthy had recommended that we speak to you, and he's not usually wrong. So I was very happy. I was very happy to have you on. And the book is really interesting. But before we even get into it, I need to know, why did you focus on this, and tell people, where is East New York?
When I first heard of East New York, I was like you. It's like, where is that? The Lower East Side? So I was not familiar with East New York. And I came to write this book because I had once written a book about the NYPD's cold case squad. And this is a squad of detectives who goes back and tries to solve old unsolved murders. And in the process of researching that book, I learned that East New York had the highest number of unsolved murders in New York. And so this is over 20 years ago, and I never forgot it. Like, okay, why East New York? It's not the only bad neighborhood in New York. Why East New York? And it's
definitely one of the worst. It's definitely one of the toughest.
So for people, it's in Brooklyn. It's in Brooklyn.
Sorry, yes, it's in Brooklyn. So East New York was once a nice working class neighborhood on the way up. And then in the late 60s, it started to go downhill. And at the end of the 60s, it almost overnight, it just tanked. And so I looked into that, and I traced it back to financial crimes in the late 60s and early 70s, which led to thousands of abandoned buildings, thousands of foreclosed buildings, which became abandoned buildings, which became abandoned lots when they caught on fire, and then the buildings next door caught on fire. And the city's response and the nation's response was to just step back and remove funds and remove the help instead of just coming in and doing something about it. And the crimes that I discovered, these financial crimes, were actually happening all across the country. And I just use East New York as my example. And what I learned was that, we all know about the subprime mortgage crisis in 2007, 2008. This was the first subprime mortgage crisis.
That's interesting, because that was one of my questions for you, is just this story to me could be so many cities. Like, that was the first thing that I was thinking about every chapter, like throughout the whole thing. I'm like, this could be anywhere USA, and people would have no idea this is going on.
Yeah, it happened all across the United States. And this particular round of criminals were focusing and targeting neighborhoods of color and immigrants, which, by the way, this is what they did in the subprime mortgage scandal of 2007, 2008. They were also targeting, families of color and immigrants.
If you could, my father's from Canarsie, so a thing or two about these sort of rough neighborhoods, not just in Brooklyn, but throughout New York. There's like a lot of reasons why certain neighborhoods remain the same as they always have. Bensonhurst and Sheepshead Bay in particular have always been, I guess, what you would call protected by the Italian mafia. And there's obviously good and bad with that in terms of what their business practices are. But at the same time, they do take care of their neighborhoods. But there's a lot of neighborhoods. East New York is a great example of that. It's one of many. Canarsie is another. I don't think people truly understand how much things have changed and how much gentrification plays a big role. Williamsburg and Greenpoint used to be some pretty rough areas, but then they got gentrified all the way to basically looking like Hoboken looks today. And essentially, that's how they deal with problems, is they force problems on other areas and make them even more dangerous. And if you could speak to that, because I do think East New York, everyone's like, oh, East New York. It's like, yeah, but it doesn't just happen by accident. Like, there's a reason that these neighborhoods become infinitely more dangerous for people to live in. And of course, they become infinitely more dangerous for people of color.
It's a complicated story. There's a lot of factors. you know, I really didn't know what I was getting into when I started researching this book. I didn't know that it was going to be about financial crimes. And at a certain point, very soon, actually, I realized, you know, racism is a part of this story. And as time went on, I went, oh my God, racism is practically the whole story. But what I did, so the book is two threads. It's one thread shows East New York and year by year the decline, and the white collar crimes, how they were, what they first happened, when they were discovered, and the prosecution. And so you go back and forth. You're seeing the criminals being discovered, and then you're seeing the aftermath of their crimes. And there's just so many threads, so many things went wrong at the same time. It was like the entire country got together and contributed to this decline. And the reason why East New York still has problems is because it was always a forgotten land, and it still is. Like, just by the fact that you didn't know where East New York was. You know, every time I bring it up, people go, they think it's in New York. They don't even know it's in Brooklyn.
Exactly. And it could be anywhere. It could be.
So I show how the city started, and the federal government started removing funds from East New York, and again across the country, in neighborhoods of color. The police, I mean, there's a lot of problems with the police department, but just one thing in their defense: nobody was prepared for what happened in East New York and other neighborhoods across the country. I mean, they really did tank overnight, and crime rose really fast. And I talk about why. So nobody was prepared for this. No, it never happened like this before. Nobody knew what to do. And so everyone kind of stepped back. And so I have threads showing the decline in education and in health and police, and it's just I'm not explaining this well. It reads.
It's all connected. It's all connected.
It's like a horror novel, and the criminals, meanwhile, the way they're just going on, and the world is still like this. For white collar criminals to get away with the crimes that they commit, all they have to do is commit them. No one is investigating and arresting and prosecuting white collar crimes. And I know I'm not telling you something you don't already know, but to the degree that they are going after street crimes. So these financial criminals knew this, and they exploited it. They knew that people were not paying attention to what was going on in East New York. Even Lindsay's people at the time, admitted we barely knew East New York existed. And it's not a tax base that politicians care about.
What do you think was the time period that was the biggest turning point, where it went from having potential of being a nice place to where it just got set in motion that it was going to go downhill?
Well, it started in the late 60s and early 70s. And again, it escalated so quickly. There was a guy, Walter Thabit, who was hired by the city to make a plan for improving the situation in East New York. And he tracked the number of abandoned buildings and abandoned lots in East New York year by year. And it just kept growing. I have this quote from this one guy who went, he went to Vietnam at the beginning of this, came back, and he said, it was like someone threw a bomb in there. The neighborhood was just unrecognizable. This one law enforcement guy, there were so many fires that were allowed to burn until the buildings were gone, that on many streets it was just chimneys standing, not the building. And so he said we would drive through and call it the East New York National Forest.
And why was this happening, though? Like, what was the underlying reason? I mean, this sort of like, we're going to basically trash this town so that we can make a profit off of it? I mean, it's always somehow profit motive.
It is. So there were, there were 3 crime sprees that happened. The first 2 were, oh my God, blockbusting and redlining.
Okay.
I don't go into that too much, but just quickly, in case there's anybody that doesn't know what it is, blockbusting, it's just a bunch of brokers and mortgage banks, went in there and convinced people.
Only sell to certain people.
Well, they convinced the white families that their neighborhood was about to turn into a mixed and integrated neighborhood, and that their property values were going to go down, crime was going to go up, and they better sell and get out of there fast. And they really hounded these people. Like I have interviews with people where they just would call and knock on the door, send letters, constantly hound these people until they finally successfully terrified them. And so they sold. And they would turn around and sell these. So they would sell them at a low price, and they would turn around and resell them for a very high price to families of color who were desperately trying to find homes to buy. And so when the time that the criminals, and so then banks would, once a neighborhood had turned to a certain percentage of families of color, they would no longer give mortgages or financial services to people in that area. They would literally draw a red line about it and say, no more mortgages, no more money is going into that part of town. So the neighborhood started to go downhill. And in 1968, well, in the 60s, there were a bunch of riots across the country. Your younger viewers may not be aware of this, but there were hundreds of riots all across the United States. And President Johnson commissioned this group that became known as the Kerner Commission to tell him why people were rioting. And they came back to him a few months later with the very obvious answer. America is a racist country. And he talked about how pretty much everything, all our institutions, our population support this and benefit from being a racist country. And only a massive effort is going to change anything. And so they talked they talked about the certain things that needed the most work. The fact that Black people couldn't buy homes, couldn't get jobs, and that the police were biased against them. And I think Johnson and the other political people in power at the time just looked at that list and thought housing was the one problem they had prayer of doing anything about. They could just throw some money at it. Reforming the police departments across the entire United States didn't seem doable. And then a lot of people didn't accept that the police were even a problem at this time. I mean, they still don't entirely accept that.
Not with the budget that the NYPD has.
No. So Johnson was able to pass legislation in 1968, the Civil Rights Act of 1968, which made housing discrimination illegal, and the Housing and Urban Development Act of 1968, which created programs that made it easier for people of color to purchase homes. And the FHA made this their mission. They were going to, find homes for people of color, families of color across the United States. And financial criminals and mortgage banks just took one look at these programs and saw immediately how they could make money scamming these programs. And really, the crimes were very simple, and I can explain them. But what was shocking to me to learn was how many people were in on it. I mean, they always say it takes a village to, raise, to do anything good. Well, it takes a village, I learned, to commit a crime. So it was very simple. The redlining and blockbusting had essentially, created the opportunity. There were all these homes that had been foreclosed and were starting to deteriorate. So they could buy up a lot of homes very cheaply. They'd slap a coat of paint on it, get the FHA to appraise it and agree to insure the mortgage, and they would sell it to these families who could now buy homes with a lower down payment and with a longer time to pay it back and with subsidies. And then soon after they moved, so one thing, when before the FHA will insure a home, they will come out and look through the home and make sure it's in good condition. And if it's not, they'll make a list of all these things that have to be fixed before they will insure that mortgage. So these realtors and banks got a lot of people, appraisers and others within the FHA to take bribes so that they would submit these applications with false financial information and then false claims that they had fixed all the problems, that they had fixed the wiring, that they fixed the furnace that didn't work, that they fixed the holes in the ceilings. But really all they did was slap a coat of paint on it and didn't fix anything. So a family would come into, a realtor, and often they just wanted to rent an apartment. And these guys would say, oh, why rent when you can buy a home for, $200 down, and now you're a homeowner, you don't have to worry about landlords anymore. And so they would, of course they would go along with this. Like they never dreamed that the American dream could possibly be theirs. And so they would move into the home, and then almost immediately it would just fall apart on them. The furnace wouldn't work. The ceilings would cave in, and I have endless stories of terrible things that happened to these people soon after they moved in. So inevitably it led to foreclosure because they didn't have the money to buy a new furnace, to put a new roof in, and they shouldn't have had to. And so these foreclosed buildings just added up so fast because everyone was doing it. I focus on the 4 largest companies that were doing it, but I'll never forget going down to the municipal archives where they have property cards for every building in New York City. And the director pulled out a bunch of property cards from 1968. And we just started going through them. And you see like all the owners of the buildings, and most of them up until 1968, they had like 1 or 2 owners. It was usually one family bought a building and left it to their children. So maybe there were 2 owners for the building. All of a sudden, in 1968, all these buildings, like hundreds and thousands actually, were sold. And at the time I didn't know it. I didn't look at the brokers, but when I look back, I saw it was all the brokers that I had been researching and all the brokers that had been indicted. Their names are all over these cards.
I think it's also very important, Stacy, when you consider all the things that are happening in New York right now, particularly with what happened in December with Luigi Mangione, and obviously right now with the mayor's race, and the fact that Zohran has made probably the central issue of his campaign housing. Like this is in many ways, one of the 2 primary issues of our time, healthcare and housing. And I'm curious from a New Yorker's perspective like yours, and it would behoove you to kind of explain to everybody what things are like in the city right now, because I think both of us think that Zohran definitely has a really good chance to win. And I'm wondering how you see that kind of unfolding in terms of not just East New York, but in terms of the city in general, about housing improving as it desperately needs to. And ultimately, if he were not to win, the fear that there could be a lot more Luigi Mangiones that start popping up out there. I mean, something's got to give at some point.
There's so much important. Like I look back at the Kerner Commission when they were pointing out these problems. We have so many big, big problems. But housing is such a fundamental thing. Like, how do you go forward in life if you're not coming from a good home, a good, safe home? I mean, it's everything. Your home is your sanctuary. It's where you gather your strength to go out in the world. So if you're living in a home that is falling apart, in a neighborhood that's dangerous, how do you succeed in life from that? But I'm not an expert in affordable housing, and I'm trying to learn more about it. But what I see is that developers when they say, and I feel so naive saying this, but when they say they're going to provide affordable housing, and I look at the numbers, I don't see affordable housing. I see apartments that are below market rate, but they're still not in the range where people like myself could afford to rent them. The only reason I am able to live in New York City is that I lucked into a rent stabilized apartment like around 40 years ago. So my rent has only gone up so much. I don't know how, I don't know where I would live if I didn't have this apartment. I don't know what my life would look like if I didn't have this apartment. It allowed me to be a writer. I mean, I only say that because writers don't always make a lot of money, so I can't afford expensive rent.
No, we're also living in a world today where people do not appreciate reading, writing, and arithmetic, if you will. And that's just an example of how our culture has disintegrated in many ways.
So where does affordable housing come from? It doesn't seem that private developers are the ones that are going to provide it. So
I'm in commercial real estate. Yeah. I can attest to this. And I try to explain to my fellow investors that if people can't afford to live in your home, live in your place, then you have to adjust based on their needs, not yours. This isn't I'm going to get what I'm going to get. No, I think that the country is waking up to this reality that we have to play by a fairer set of rules. Now, of course, the ones who have made a killing for far too long, and I know quite a few of them that own those 100-year-old apartment buildings in Manhattan and the Bronx, even older than that in many cases. And let me assure you that the people that own those buildings don't look anything like the people who live there, and they don't live anywhere near there. In fact, you've got some of the richest real estate investors are slumlords. They don't care one iota about these people. And so while I am not somebody who advocates for the government to run things, there has to be a balance between government and business. And right now we don't have it. And so Zohran's process about how to change the dynamic in the city, just something as simple as we have to do something about rent control. We have to do something about potentially having at least one government-run grocery store in each of the 5 boroughs. And we have to do something about public transportation. And even that slight push, who are the loudest people in the room who scream bloody murder about him trying to do that? The people who have benefited the most from this broken system. Yeah. That's the way it goes. And that's why what he's talking about, especially in this moment, is absolutely correct.
Well, that's what so in these 2 threads, one of the things, so I have a million timelines so I could see what was happening every year in every area of life. And one thing I saw was, so you've got financial crimes escalating and you have street crimes escalating at the same time. There was a massive effort to do something about, to put laws in place, minimum sentencing for street crimes. But for the financial criminals, nothing changed. They didn't go after them, even though they were responsible for everything else that followed. It's still like that today.
I don't think those things are unrelated at all. I think it was very intentional. I think that the street crimes, and especially when I mean, as a child that grew up in the 70s and 80s, and we know looking back about things like what was going on with crack cocaine and what the powers that be were doing to certain neighborhoods to control certain areas. And I think that goes hand in hand with devaluing the property and causing all of these problems in neighborhoods that would have otherwise been doing okay if they had been left alone. And that is something that we just could not tolerate. We could not tolerate poor people, brown people thriving. And any sort of indication that that could happen, well, we can't have that. So how can we profit off of the situation? And I just got, like, listening to all of this, it's very frustrating because to me, the problem really, it's a capitalism problem. This is a capitalism problem. It's yet one more example of something that should be universal basic services, things that satisfy our universal needs as humans that we should be able to get from living in a society and having a civilization: housing, healthcare, education. These are things that cannot only exist as profit entities. These are things that have to be taken off of the profit table. And I am not averse to people making money as for housing, but there has to be a limit. There has to be a limit to that is reined in when it is something that is a universal basic service. So housing is just one more example that it needs to be taken off of the profit table.
The problem is it's very expensive. I mean, it sounds stupid to say, but the book I wrote before this was about Roosevelt Island in the 19th century, when it was called Blackwell's Island. And the city bought it, and they used it to build replacement institutions for the institutions that existed in Manhattan. So there were a couple of prisons, there was what they called a lunatic asylum, public hospitals for poor people who couldn't afford private hospitals. And when they started this, they started with the best of intentions. They realized that all their efforts in this area, housing the poor, medical help for the poor, and for the poor with mental illness, they realized they did a bad job and they had to do better. And they just repeated all the same mistakes, because when it came down to how much it would cost, they were not willing to spend the money. And so they cut all these corners. And by cutting all these corners, and I don't want to go into this because it's a whole nother subject, but they made everything 1,000 times worse, which is what is happening now. Like, if you're going to, is that me? Do you hear that?
Yeah. Colin, please mute her when Stacy's speaking.
So now I lost my track of thought.
We'll wrap it up.
Okay. Well, I can stop.
No, it's all good. And I think that the essence here is, as Jen was alluding to, we do have a broken system. And nowhere is it more obvious than in New York City. I mean, if you really think about it, it really is an inflection point. Just by Zohran winning the primary, he's a Muslim Indian socialist in the biggest Zionist colonialized city maybe in the world. And he won. And he won convincingly. He didn't even win by a little. He won in the second round, which is the equivalent of basically winning by double digits. And that is unbelievable. In almost any other circumstance, we would never see an outcome like that. But
it's exciting. It's exciting.
It is. And that's why we're cautiously optimistic. I know no matter what, we've seen the letdowns from Bernie, the letdowns from AOC, but there's something about this guy that I think he grasps what this moment is. And I think he understands that he has a lot of people riding on him to make some type of a change. And while that's a much bigger task if you're running for even governor, much less running for president, but mayor, this is an opportunity where I think if he gets it, and especially with the amount of people behind him, I think he's going to have a chance to make some positive change in that city. And if he does, he's going to set a benchmark for a lot of other people to step up, perhaps at a point where maybe they thought they would and never went for it, but now they will. And this story about housing and how these communities have been poorly served deliberately for the purpose of money and power, which should come as no surprise to anybody. I do think that this is a key moment right now. And if anybody wants better insight into that moment, I think taking a look at your book will certainly crystallize in many ways why Zohran won the mayoral nomination in the Democratic Party, which means that he is the favorite to win a few months from now. But the biggest reason he won is because of the housing crisis that exists in a city that has done this, not just to East New York, but to a lot of different neighborhoods, so that it benefits the very select few in the places we mentioned, which in many ways is a reflection of the broken system that is capitalism that we're under still.
I just want to add that most of the neighborhoods that were targeted back in the 60s and 70s are still suffering today.
Absolutely. Again, some of them, as we mentioned, have just been gentrified to the hilt, and that's why they're where they are today. But think about, you're in Manhattan?
Yes.
I mean, just think about the Bronx. Think about the fact that the South Bronx, which is one of the roughest areas in the entire city, which is predominantly Black and Latino, is as rough as it gets. And then the North Bronx, which is predominantly Jewish, especially in Riverdale, is safe, clean, and prosperous. And it's been that way for at least 60, 70 years. Nothing's changed. It's exactly the same. And so when we ask ourselves, why doesn't anything change? It's because for very long, I don't think a lot of people truly understood how politics works, but we're in sort of a great awakening period that's happening right now. And I think that that's the biggest reason why you're not going to be able to pull the wool over people's eyes. I mean, Trump is just one part of the phenomena where the corruption is just right in your face. There is nothing going on behind the scenes. It's like right out in the open. And what I've learned is that when it's shoved in your face, most people don't like that. And that's why I believe that the Great Awakening is happening. And I think your story can really help crystallize that for a lot of people who are wondering, how did this happen? How is Zohran in this position? I mean, I still try to explain to people that you don't realize how big a deal this is. Like, this is overwhelmingly huge. This is the biggest political inflection point, in my opinion, since Bernie Sanders won the Michigan primary in 2016. Like, there has been nothing close to this since then. And now we're living in it. The question is, do we get it right this time? And do we prosper from
it? He has such a challenge. If he wins, the challenge that faces him is so enormous. And all the people who will fight him from succeeding, who will try to prevent it, is just staggering. So we have to build an army as strong as them with as much money as them.
I think this was the reminder of what you were talking about before, by the way.
Yeah.
The island, about Roosevelt Island.
Yeah. It costs more to do things right and to do things well and to give them a chance to succeed. There are so many great programs all over the city, all over the country, but they're so tiny and they need to be massive. They need to be massively funded so they can be helping more people better. And like the Carter Commission said, over 50 years ago, it's going to take a massive effort to even begin to turn this around. So Zohran is going to have to summon a massive effort and a massive amount of funds to provide affordable housing and everything else that he hopes to provide.
This is one of those things where, we often talk about modern monetary theory on here, where this is an issue because you're talking about something at a city level, or even if we're talking about something at a state level, which is what this would be under, where it is challenging, which is why it's something that needs to be a federal right, that we have a right to housing, because at the end of the day, this has to be something that we view as a priority, that all human beings are entitled to a minimum life of dignity. And this is what that looks like. And then it's up to states and municipalities to administer it based on their individual locations. But at the end of the day, we need to decide at a national level that we believe housing is a human right and that is something that we're entitled to.
I just thought of something. One of the people that I featured in my book, Jack Blum, suggested that I write a book about tax fraud. And the reason he suggested that was because we both got a tip. I don't know if it's true, but that Trump is going to eliminate the Department of Justice tax fraud division that brings criminal cases for tax fraud. He's not cutting it down. He's eliminating it. So there will be no more criminal prosecutions of tax frauds. Basically.
Oh, that's totally not true. We're just very honest operators and we need to get the government off our back. That's the problem. Believe me.
But I thought, oh my God, and not just this, but if wealthy people and corporations actually paid their taxes, and if we took back all these massive tax breaks that they do not need or deserve, those taxes could pay for affordable housing and many other programs.
Amen. You're muted, Jen.
That's true. And certainly when we're talking about the state level and municipal level, where we do know that then the tax dollars do fund programs and do fund spending. And that is really important to do that. But at the end of the day, I think that it's our government, our federal government's responsibility to make sure that we all have housing as a human right. I do believe that. I believe, and I've been seeing people talking about our friend Harvey K in the chat and what the 21st century economic bill of rights is. It does include housing. It includes housing. It includes healthcare. It includes a job with a living wage. And these are all things that only can be really done at the federal level when we're talking about affording these types of things that we're entitled to. At a state level and certainly at a city level, those things are dependent on tax dollars and to fund those programs. And that's one of the reasons that someone like Zohran has a much bigger mountain to climb, because he does have to find the funding. Whereas at a federal level, when we all say, how are you going to pay for it? Well, we know how we're going to pay for it. We're going to issue the money just like we do for every other thing federally, like war and all the things we have the money for. But at a city level, he will have to balance that. And that will be a challenge to do so. And that's why it's so frustrating as someone who's like an anti-capitalist like me, to see that he's going to have to struggle with it at the municipal level and be able to succeed with it at a municipal level, when I know that it really needs to be handled at the federal level to make sure that people all have housing. Yeah. And that's what's very frustrating to me, because I do believe he's well-intended.
Oh, absolutely. And I agree with your points.
Can't thank you enough for coming on, Stacy. Guys, if you would, please consider picking up a copy of The Killing Fields of East New York. Again, I think this is a great example of a book that can explain why the rise of Zohran has come to fruition. Knock on wood, in a few months, he will be sworn in as the next mayor of New York City, and perhaps the housing crisis will finally be dealt with in a legitimately profound way.
And again, guys, I recommend this book for not just even understanding housing. It's really a good chronology of what happens to cities and how basically the haves completely screw over the have-nots. But when you come at it from a perspective of denying people housing, that's essentially we talk a lot about genocide on here, but when you deny people housing and a life of dignity, you're killing them off. It's a class war. You're killing off, it's a class war, because when people can't exist and live with dignity, it takes away everything else.
I couldn't have put it better myself.
And so I really do appreciate that examination, because when you deprive people housing, you're denying their existence. And that's what they're doing ultimately when they make housing completely unattainable for people.
Yes, and for many, that is the case. Thank you so much, Stacy. Hope you have a wonderful evening.
Thank you
for coming on. Absolutely.
Anytime. Bye-bye. Yeah. Again, I'm not naive to why things are the way that they are. Everybody's like, oh, Peter will get it eventually. I'm like, I do get it.
Are they saying that? Are they saying that? Oh, they'll bless their hearts.
Yeah. Well, I know you. Hey, listen.
He will. He's coming around. Peter will get it. I've been working my wiles with him.
I do get it. I just don't agree with everyone's take that, there can't be a profit motive involved. And I don't believe that. I believe
not with housing. I do not think that our basic services can have profit motive and be successful.
Once again, that's not how it works. When you're living in an apartment complex, there are varying things that have to be dealt with. But again, there is a difference between what is legitimate and fair and what is just outright greed. And that's the difference. And I live it. I see it every day. I know who's actually in it for the right reasons. And I know who's in it because they're just greedy scumbags. I've worked with them.
Well, that's any industry, isn't it? It's how some CEOs know that they are only as good as their median worker and their lowest paid worker. And those CEOs are willing to not be total pigs and to be able to live a decent, right. And so when you get back to the kind of CEOs that are only making 20 times or 30 times what their lowest paid employee is versus a CEO that's making 3,000 times what their lowest paid employee is, you know, it's what we call a schnurra. You know, it's like pigs get fat, hogs get slaughtered. And so I understand that people can make a little something, something for their time and effort, even as a property owner. I understand that. And I don't have a problem with that. All right. But when you take it to the level of capitalism, where you've got shareholders and a profit motive involved that is beyond serving the person who is either the customer or the person who's involved in the process, the homeowner, why should somebody else be profiting off of that?
And this is also why commercial real estate is a very unique investment tool, because it's not just housing. Multifamily obviously plays a big role. It's probably the biggest role. It's also the biggest lane that the Zionists play in. You also have retail, you have industrial, you have office, you have medical. There are so many different components to commercial real estate investment. And the biggest difference between multifamily and any other asset class is that commercial real estate investment, particularly retail and industrial, is all about supply and demand. Either there is a real need for it and people are willing to pay a certain amount to get it, and that is what makes our economy go. Housing, on the other hand,
that's different
animal.
Well, that's what I'm talking about. We're not talking about commercial real estate. I mean, that's a whole different thing. I'm talking about
even though multifamily is technically considered part of the commercial real estate sector, it really is separate in many ways. Like
it needs to be much more highly regulated. You cannot be screwing over people's housing.
And it is without question the most unregulated, because at the end of the day, when I talk to multifamily investors in particular, whether they're in New York or Jersey, where I'm from, or any of these other places, what is the first thing that they think of when they're talking about where they're going to invest in housing? Is it a red state? Do I have to worry about regulation? Can I do whatever the fuck I want? That's their primary objective. And it isn't even a question of whether they can get reasonable profits based on their investment. It's how can I make a killing? How can I kill when I make my investment? It's not, I get guys, I shit you not. You have to see some of the emails I get from some of these Shylock investors. It would make your skin crawl, like how disgusting they are. How they are, as far as I'm concerned, they're no better than people that work in organized crime. It's the same thing. Like for them, it's all about being a bottom feeder. How do I get my hands on a piece of on an asset where the thing that kills particularly the Zionist investors who own all of the old tenement buildings in Harlem and in the Bronx and places like that, these are all Zios that live in Long Island, that live in Miami, and they're slumlords. And they don't give a flying F about anybody who lives in those buildings. They never update them. They keep them where they are. And the biggest reason they do that is because there is rent control in a lot of these buildings. So for them, they have no motivation. They don't care. For them, it's
right. I think the bigger issue, though, I do think the bigger issue is the private equity, single family homes, private equity owning.
That should be illegal.
And also the manufactured house park, like trailer parks, mobile home parks, those kinds of communities are being so preyed upon. So you have our most vulnerable people in those housing, everybody who's in vulnerable housing. And I think we could all agree on what that is. You know, you decide, what percentage of people or what you would call vulnerable people, and that housing needs to be protected. And that cannot be a profit motive. It cannot be a profit motive. There has to be housing that is provided that is not profit. That's what that's what housing is. That's government housing. And we've talked about it before. We talked about it regarding in Austria, that you have the majority of people in the country live in government housing, but that is not what our perception of government housing is. No, it isn't slums. It's just different subsidized levels of housing for people. So because they actually think you're entitled to have a house.
Yeah.
And by house, I don't mean housing.
I mean, look, I
And
try to
it's
explain. I try to explain to investors all the time, and I explain to them very concisely that there are so many different ways that you can benefit from an investment without you becoming a greedy fuck. Like if you just actually understood how this works, instead of, this is why people like the Tony Robbins of investment, like the Grant Cardones, the Brad Sumrocks of the world, they completely distort the reality of what investing is all about. Most of the time, you get long-term smart investors who maintain their properties. They make sure their tenants are happy, that the rent is reasonable, and that's the way it's generally supposed to be. Then you get these fucking gurus who come in there that all go to the, go to Trump University to learn how to do real estate. And then essentially what they want is, how do we get in there for the shortest amount of time with the least amount of money to make the most amount of profit? And this is what happens. When I met Grant Cardone in Vegas about a year ago, I mean, there was like this flock of 25-year-old guys that all looked like they came directly out of prep school, and they were running up to him like he was a god, like they needed to kiss his feet. I couldn't believe how brainwashed people were. I feel like telling them, this guy's a shyster. This guy doesn't do anything to help you. He does this all to help himself. He just sees you as a sucker. And if you're a sucker enough to go along with his bullshit, that's on you. And then, of course, the tenants get screwed even harder. So what to do?
I really am averse to the idea. And yes, Travers, yes, I'm averse to this concept of residential real estate being for profit. I just don't like it. I think that housing is a human right. I think that it is something that we need to prioritize as part of what we consider to be basic services that we are entitled to. And as such, it cannot be driven by a profit motive, just like education. And I don't care if there's public versus private schooling. That's not the problem. It has to be the quality of our public schools.
Randall, you have no idea who the hell you're talking to. Please educate me with everything you've got, pal. I can't wait.
We have no clue about. I don't have any idea about real estate, but I have an idea that housing is a human right. See, that's what I know.
No, I
know that we're capable of that. I know that we have the ability to do that. I know that we have the resources for that, and that poverty is a policy choice, and that what we don't have is the will to do that because of corporate greed. That's what I know. So,
and that's a big part of it. I think if we're going to transition, look, we have given Trump his flowers. We have given Charlie Kirk. We've given the GOP, and it's tenants don't pay. Tenants don't pay. What do you? Excuse me? Okay, if you're talking about Section 8 housing, in which they get a government subsidy, that is partially true, but not all true. And let me assure you, if you've ever seen Section 8 housing, and I have, and I'm going through a rehab property right now that was Section 8 and is coming out of it. If you want to live like that and pay a couple $100 a month, you be my guest. You couldn't pay me to live in that type of an environment. In fact, I doubt that anybody would want to live in it. So again, talking about something that is incorrect. Colin, would you please pull up the first article that I sent you from earlier? Now, I want to be clear about something. I want people to understand why Kamala Harris, A, is not running for governor, B, is going on national talk shows, C, is peddling a book. Why is she peddling a book? Why would anybody be peddling a book? This is why. Most people just assume that this is because she's running again. No. This was right after the election, and I'm sure very few people remember this. According to the Daily Mail, Kamala Harris set to receive a whopping $20 million from top book publishers for a chance to peek into the skeletons in Biden's White House. You want to know why she's out there doing what she's doing? 20 million reasons is a good enough number, if you ask me. Kamala Harris, who bizarrely blew through a record $1.5 billion on her failed presidential campaign, may soon earn some big bucks payback. No, she's already earned them. This is just one of many things that she will do to become very, very rich. Top publishers, Daily Mail has learned exclusively, are willing to pay the soon-to-be former VP and twice failed Democrat presidential hopeful a whopping advance as much as $20 million for an inside look at President Joe Biden's 82 White House and presidential campaign tell-all. Well, that's really what people want. They want the juice. According to a Kamala insider, because you know it's drip, drip when it comes to these consultants, always looking to get paid, virtually the moment Kamala lost to Trump, the offers began pouring in from the publishing world for her to do the definitive book on what really went on between Joe and Kamala. What went right and what went wrong inside the Oval Office walls and all the ups and downs of her campaign. They are throwing around advanced numbers in the 20 million range, maybe more with other publishing rights. So scoring such a huge sum of Kamala is not out of the question. Barack and Michelle Obama landed a joint deal from Penguin Random House worth a record $65 million advance in 2017. Now, granted, he had just come off 2 terms as president. But with that said, Bill Clinton got a $10 million advance all the way back in 2001, and that's worth the
Gross.
all that today. Oh, trust me, it's going to get even more gross very soon. A prominent executive at one of New York's top liberal-leaning publishing houses. Can you believe that we now have
disgusted by her. I want her to go away. I want her to go. But the truth is, I'm still waiting for Hillary to go away, and I can't get rid of her. So it's like, here's another one.
So she was there from the beginning of the administration and participated in all the presidential decisions, right or wrong. She's the one. You can tell the consummate story. Even though I think, again, that's just blowing smoke up her ass. I don't think she really made that many decisions at all. It could be even more with TV and movie rights, magazines, newspaper serial rights.
What TV and movie rights? What?
And like the Obamas, who made a huge deal with Netflix, which is a failed deal, by the way, the monster streaming service is said to be waiting in the wings to do a deal with Kamala, we've heard. Colin, could you please scroll in on her very jubilant face?
She's so joyful.
Joy, remember? Wasn't that the talk of the entire campaign? That's why everybody's excited about Kamala. This person almost hoodwinked the entire nation into getting into the White House without having to win anything. She was as manufactured as anybody. And therein lies the Democratic Party's failure as a party. The entire failure of a party that at the end of the day was so sure that this country wouldn't vote Donald Trump back into office as a fuck you to them. Because I'm telling you, when you get right down to it, the biggest reason Trump won twice was that it was a fuck you to the Democratic Party and the corporate establishment. Now, granted, we all see what Trump has become and probably always was, but this is a person who had her entire political career guided by the most powerful politicians, not just in San Francisco, but in California politics. People can make all the jokes they want about how she slept her way to the top, but the fact of the matter is she had essentially every single cushy job handed to her on a silver platter. It's not that she didn't work for it. She was willing to prosecute and incarcerate truant students to make a good impression. But
not Steve Mnuchin.
But not Steve Mnuchin, who gave her $3 million to run for senator of California, the only Democrat he's ever donated to in his entire career. And this person was almost president of the United States.
No, she wasn't.
Well, I mean, she was the nominee of the other major party.
Yeah, but she wasn't almost the president.
Is she going to run again?
She could do whatever she wants. She's not going to ever be the president. She's not even going to be the governor of California. She could do whatever she wants to do. She'll get a talk show. She'll have a book, whatever. Who knows?
But who's listening to this? Like, who is she appealing
A
to?
bunch of this. Honestly, you're asking someone who thinks that the K Hive is a complete manufactured thing that isn't real. I think it's all bots and paid people. I don't think it's real. I think if there's people that like her, it's whoever was in her sorority, whoever the sorority that she was into at her HBCU, whatever that sorority is, those women really like her, and that's about it.
She did go to Howard. All right, Colin, let's see what else there is. Oh, tell you, she puts on a face. She really does. As we see it, her book would be the hottest White House and presidential campaign tell-all ever, and would sell like hotcakes to readers on both sides of the
Who wrote this?
This is some anonymous Democratic insider.
Why are we reading this version? That's so ridiculous.
And political power players are quietly advising Kamala to get the jump on any memoir Joe Biden might be planning. Well, it's not like Joe Biden would be writing it. So she could get her side out in the public first on what really went on. Kamala allegedly told members of her team that she wants to keep her options open about her next career move and has vowed to stay in the fight. No one's asking you to stay in the fight. Still, publishers investing a small fortune in a Kamala Harris tell-all expect her to tell the whole truth and nothing but the truth. I mean, even putting those words on paper about a politician like Kamala Harris is pretty funny.
This is silly. This is silly.
It's silly. It is. It's hysterical in the most sad way possible. Yeah, maybe. That would be a hoot. A tell-all about it.
All right, are we done talking Kamala?
A tell-all about the fact that she was a completely manufactured Politico, and that the Democratic establishment is going to continue to do this. That this is not changing. It's just going to evolve in a different way.
Well, it's going to devolve, and they're just going to gradually die off and peter out.
Well, I believe that as much as it is going to peter out and get worse, you've got Slotkin, you've got Whitmer, you've got Newsom, you've got Pritzker, you've got Josh Shapiro, you've got all of these really terrible people, and they are going to run. Heck, there's even talk that Elizabeth Warren is going to try to run again.
Good luck with that, people. Good luck with all that.
That's part of the reason why people think Elizabeth Warren is in New York promoting Zohran, because she's, trying to sort of lay that foundation. Let me assure you, what Elizabeth Warren did, first of all, she has no personality, so she's not going anywhere.
She's a snake. She's a snake.
Where's Debbie when you need her?
Here's the thing. Anybody who has already run, anybody that they've already put up, don't even bother. Not one of the people that has already run for that office has a snowball's chance in hell of getting any further than they did the last time they tried. And for somebody like Gavin Newsom or Gretchen Whitmer, who haven't been up there before but are thinking about it, still not going to get anywhere.
You see,
they
Stacey,
will not get anywhere.
Stacey, the problem with Elizabeth Warren is not that she isn't good on several policies, which she is, especially consumer protection. Give her credit, give her flowers where they are earned. But in terms of her political maneuvering, and especially what she did to Bernie Sanders, in my opinion, unforgivable. Unforgivable. Yeah. And it didn't get her anywhere.
She calling him sexist, and
I think you called me a liar. Yeah.
Well, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, especially when we know that Bernie had originally wanted her to run against Hillary in 2016. Yeah, and she didn't do it, and she wouldn't do it. And so he did it. But then for her to come out and say he doesn't think a woman could just please.
Speaking of the people that actually made Kamala in the first place, Colin, I think it's very important that we talk about this very important story that
Which
apparently
story?
Now. I think somebody might be getting indicted. Actually, a couple of people be getting indicted.
Really? Like now you're getting new news right now?
We are.
Breaking news? Why are you leaving? There's breaking news. Oh no, I know what's happening. I can't. I'm just glad that you're not here in person.
Wow.
So, are we really getting breaking news, or are you doing a bit? What's happening? Uh-oh.
Well, I am partially doing a bit, but I'm only doing it because I get paid a hell of a lot of money to come on here and do it. Jen, you're looking great. Nice to see you. How things going over there? Pretty good?
Yeah, it's great down here. It's great down here.
It's not going too good for me, unfortunately. Clinton subpoenaed to testify congressional Epstein investigation. Now, if you just scroll down a little bit, you'll see me speaking at my foundation, but you can see this person sitting next to me. She's not too happy. In fact, she looks like she wants to kill me. I have to come on here this evening before this article gets read because I have to pre-warn you all exactly why this is coming out now. Now, I have to confess. I have a confession. I mean, I'm always telling the truth. I mean, you all know that. I did not have sexual relations on that island. I had it on the airplane. I just want you all to know that there is context here. Very distinct, important context. And every single time that I was there, I was presented with an identification of the person that I was engaged with. Now, granted, the ID and the person looked completely different, but the age said that they were over the age of consent. And Jen, in the end, isn't that what matters most?
Oh, God, no, it's gross. Are we? So,
listen, I am here. I'm asking you now to be my lawyer. Are you willing?
Oh, God, no, I'm not your lawyer. I've seen what happens. I've seen what happens to your lawyers. They end up with cinder blocks on their ankles.
Listen, that's only happened 32 times, but the other 175, they all ended up okay. So
yeah,
odds are in your favor that you'll be okay. So
no.
Don't feel like you can't join. I mean, listen, we pay extremely well. Have you seen the amount of money our foundation has brought in? Granted, it doesn't have much left, but we have enough to pay you. I think you charge only a couple of $100 an hour. Is that right?
Oh, God.
I'm used to spending a couple of $1,000 an hour on my attorneys. So, fortunately, that kind of money is kind of drying up. Could you take a discount? Just a slight discount. You'll still be making a lot of money. And knowing how long this trial could actually last, it might end up being a very hefty payday for you. So you would have to give it consideration. Okay. Yes?
Can we talk about the Clinton situation seriously?
Just tell me that you're going to look out for me, Jen. Please.
I'll look out for you in hell, Bill. In hell, Bill.
No matter how hard I try, I just can't get this lady to give me a break.
Not going to happen, Bill.
With all these years, it turns out that Jen is no different than Hillary. She hates me too. Bye.
I can't even when you're like that.
Former U.S. President Bill Clinton and his wife Hillary are among high-profile figures to be sent legal summonses from a congressional committee investigating the late sex offender Jeffrey Epstein. Republican James Comer, chairman of the House Oversight Committee, issued the subpoenas to the Clintons and 8 other individuals. The committee is seeking information about Epstein's history after President Donald Trump's administration decided against releasing more federal files on the dead financier. I believe that it will eventually all come out because there's just too much money and power. Again, there's that little thing again. There's way too much money and power involved in releasing this information. Apparently, Trump's name has been redacted from all of the Epstein files. That's already been done. They had 1,000 federal agents go through these documents to redact Trump's
everything. And you know what, though? These documents are already so tainted. The entire file is tainted. Once I saw Dershowitz basically baiting them and saying, I have no problem if they're released. I know I'm fine. I'm on it. Yeah, because they've been scrubbed.
Of course. The committee is seeking information about Epstein's history. And so that decision sparked outrage among Trump supporters and some Democrats who refused to accept the Justice Department's statement that there is no incriminating client list in the Epstein files. Amid a rift between Trump and some of his supporters on Epstein, the committee, made up of both Democrats and Republicans, recently voted to issue the subpoenas. As far as I'm concerned, this is just kicking the can down the road. This isn't, they're not actually doing what they need to be doing. The panel has also subpoenaed the Justice Department itself for records related to Epstein. Lawyers for Ghislaine Maxwell, Epstein's associate, accomplice, who is currently serving a 20-year sentence for sex trafficking, had indicated she was willing to testify before the powerful investigatory committee with strict legal protections, of course. Her scheduled August 11th deposition, though, has been postponed indefinitely. The Epstein legal saga has spanned 2 decades, with Florida police and the FBI first scrutinizing the well-connected tycoon for allegations of sexual abuse in the early 2000s. Comer wrote in letters to each person that the committee must conduct oversight of the federal government's enforcement of sex trafficking laws generally and specifically its handling of the investigation and prosecution of Mr. Epstein and Maxwell. He also indicated that depositions will start this month and run through the autumn, with Bill Clinton scheduled for the 14th of October. I want to know when Hillary Clinton is scheduled to talk.
Well, is she, I mean, well, it depends on, you know, has she been cited? Like, has she been to the island? Has she been on the Lolita Express? I don't know that.
Former attorneys general Merrick Garland, Loretta Lynch, Eric Holder, and Alberto Gonzales were summoned, along with Jeff Sessions and William Barr, who both led the Justice Department during Trump's first term. Former FBI directors James Comey and Robert Mueller were also sent subpoenas. The Clinton administration predates the Epstein investigation, but the couple's critics have long questioned their relationship with Epstein. Spokesperson has acknowledged that Bill Clinton took 4 trips with staff on Epstein's private plane in 2002, 2003, and met with Epstein in New York in 2002. Clinton also visited Epstein's New York apartment around that time. It has been confirmed that, citing flight logs, U.S. media has previously reported Clinton flew on Epstein's jet up to 26 times, occasionally without Secret Service detail. And if that's verifiable, then you know he's involved. In 2019...
Wait a minute. We've known about this, though. This isn't even news about the flights on the Lolita. We knew how many times his name was in the manifest.
Well, they're still trying to bring it back, which I think is again, think about how difficult it is to keep people's attention, for them to actually acknowledge and remember any of these stories. In many cases, people forget and they need a little reminder. So I don't think that that's unheralded in many ways. So in 2019, a spokesperson said that former president knows nothing about the terrible crimes Jeffrey Epstein. Yeah, he knows nothing. See no evil, hear no evil. So Epstein pleaded guilty in Florida some years ago, those which have been recently charged in New York. The Clinton Foundation and Bill Clinton's press office did not immediately respond for requests for comment. The Department of Justice did not respond for comment. And I believe that's a picture of the 2 guilty parties, extremely guilty parties,
that were apparently involved in a giant sex slave trafficking ring for just the 2 of them. That apparently... that nobody else was involved in. It was just for the 2 of their pleasure.
The committee is seeking all of the department's documents and communications on Epstein and Maxwell relating to or referring to human trafficking, exploitation of minors, sexual abuse, or related activity, as well as files from the U.S. criminal cases against Maxwell and Epstein, documents from a 2007 agreement to not prosecute Epstein, and federal investigations into the former financier. He died by suicide in jail that August. No, he did not. This summer, Attorney General Pam Bondi, fall person, announced her department, after conducting a review, had found no evidence of the long-rumored client list. The fight among House Republicans over the case grew so contentious that Speaker Mike Johnson sent lawmakers home early in July to block a vote over the Epstein files release. As demands grew for the Trump administration to release more Epstein records, the Justice Department recently met Maxwell. A source familiar with the discussions told the BBC and CBS News that Maxwell did not implicate Trump when discussing Epstein's misdeeds. But of course not, because it's part of a whitewashing operation.
Can I also say that I recently came across this photo of Trump with a then teenage Pam Bondi.
Yeah, I
Now, I
saw
don't
that.
know if- okay, did you see that too?
Yes.
So I'm starting to wonder what her link is to Epstein and Epstein's Island, because she clearly he knew her before she went to law school. And I don't know, if you guys have seen it out there, but there is a picture floating around of Trump with Pam Bondi in a way that to me looked skeevy and inappropriate, because she was clearly a teenager and he was lechy and him.
Well, Trump
But,
is still appropriate like Clinton
But
is.
I can't help but wonder now, is she sort of is the one overseeing this, that could she potentially be somebody that came up from that? I don't know her history, but if there's a picture of Trump with her as a teenager, and I just think that's very interesting.
I don't think it's interesting. I think it's completely expected. I think in the world that we live in today, it should come as absolutely no surprise how things are going down.
Yes, that's exactly what I'm saying. Yes. That I think that it's more than a coincidence that the attorney general and the person who is supposedly looking into the Epstein case is somebody that Trump has known since she was a teenager in what looked to me to be a very provocative looking photo. So I just think that's a very strange coincidence.
I don't think it's a coincidence.
So you just think that that's just clear?
I just think that there is a very sizable cabal of people that are very powerful and very connected, and that they have just been able to get away with murder, among other things.
I just wouldn't be surprised if you were to unravel the Pam Bondi biography.
Like how she got where she is.
That there wouldn't somehow be links, especially coming out of Florida, that there wouldn't somehow be links with Lago and Epstein.
At some point, you're going to have to.
Well, that's Ghislaine Maxwell, yeah.
But at some point, you're going to have to answer for this photograph. Like somebody is going to have to answer for this. Why?
What do you want them to say? But what do you think that proves? What does that show? We knew they ran in the same circles, and we know that her father was Mossad. But her being at Chelsea's wedding, that's not weird. They ran in the same circles.
No, I'm not saying it's weird at all. I'm saying that it's a glaring example of just how small this club is and how everybody knows each other.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, listen, we could show you the photo from Trump's wedding with the Clintons. And that was just a few years.
Or what about the picture of him when Melania was still very, very young with Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell? Picture the four of them all cozy, like they're in some, swingers bar.
I mean, again, this is a world that most people are not a part of. They're not ever going to be a part of it. And I don't think anybody would generally care. But these are the people that are running our government and are running the world in many ways. And they are dangerous people. And
Colonello, excellent point. Point being that exactly. So this is someone who's been being groomed since teenagerdom from this cabal of people, from this cabal of oligarchs that, who knows? I just think it's all coming together. It's like the story's coming full circle.
I just don't know how they expect to potentially sweep this under the rug forever. They're just not going to be able to do it. They're going to try. And try as they might, they're going to fail. Because the people are demanding it now. And that's it. That's where we are.
Yeah.
And if you think that this is outrageous, speaking of a person who's about to get kicked to the curb himself, I never.
Or you want to end on this? Is this what you want to end on? Okay.
Got two more, but this one isn't. I never considered myself a fan of Howard Stern. Private Parts had its moments as a film, but Howard Stern's shtick was just so. It's not even the fact that it's chauvinistic. I mean, that's part of it, sure. But if you've ever listened to Stern do an interview, I mean, you think Jen talks over me at times. You haven't seen nothing if you haven't seen it. Howard Stern. Howard Stern basically leads his interviews. Like, he basically tries to drag people through their entire conversation by telling them what he expects them to say. I never really understood what the whole fuss was about him. I guess at the time, particularly in the 80s and 90s when he was at his peak, he was a good sounding board for people that were trying to get noticed in various industries. And by going on his show, it probably provided a good platform for them to do it. It turns out that he is about to get canceled, finally, that Sirius is not renewing his contract, which apparently was paying him somewhere in excess of $100 million a year, which again, on the surface is just unbelievable that the number is that high. But as Brett, our trusty mod, points out, that's not why we're talking about him. We're talking about him because we want people to understand why this son of a bitch has stayed in the highest ranks of society for 40 years. Yeah, mid.
I was never a fan. Like, I've never the show. I always found the movie was okay. The humor it's just all just potty sex humor. It's stupid.
I know you guys are going to find this funny, but so when I used to drive to school in the morning in 2000, 2001, my senior year, I would listen to Imus in the morning. I would not listen to Howard Stern. Now, part of the reason I listened to Imus in the morning is because I actually found Imus in the morning to be funnier. That's the reason that I listen to Imus in the morning. I did not listen to Howard Stern. That was me. I don't know or did not know all of these things about him. But what I do know is that Howard Stern has always been a Zion-Nazi. He has never really hidden the fact that he feels this way. But I found an article from Rolling Stone the Hollywood Reporter from October of 2015. Howard Stern goes off on Pink Floyd's Roger Waters over Israel remarks. Where do you want the Jews to go, Roger? You want them to just go back to the concentration camps? Again, always inflammatory language, never in basis of reality, always trying to make a mountain out of a molehill, which is not surprising because that's all Stern was ever good at. Scroll down, please, Colin. Howard Stern probably shouldn't expect Roger Waters to make a guest appearance on the Shock Jock show anytime soon. Not after absolutely lambasting the former Pink Floyd frontman for his anti-Israel activism. And that's why we love Roger Waters. And this was a decade ago that he was doing this. What is with Roger Waters and the Jews? Of course, that's how he puts it. Asked Stern during a 7-minute soliloquy defending Israel while insinuating over and over that Waters is anti-Semitic. Jen, could you please explain to the audience that that's not what anti-Semitism is?
Well, obviously, and we talk about this a lot. So I do feel bad somewhat because I know that there were periods of time when, in my Zionist mindset, I did also think of Roger Waters as anti-Semitic, and I never boycotted Pink Floyd or, didn't like their music or anything, but I did subscribe to that concept. And not 2015, I didn't.
Stern's motivation was a letter Waters wrote to members of Bon Jovi, published by Salon, that cascaded the rock band for an October 3rd performance in Tel Aviv. Yeah, John, you suck just like Bruce sucks. Hate to have to say that to my Jersey boys, but hey.
It's so unfortunate.
Oh, you're living on a prayer now, pal. In the letter, Waters speaks of Israeli oppression of Palestinians. This is 2015, mind you. And he links to several accusations of abhorrent behavior on the part of Jews in Israel. He's got to shut up, Roger Waters, said Stern on Tuesday's show. If you take a look over there, Roger, genius, Mr. Pink Floyd, you mean somebody who actually gave back to the universe, unlike you, who made it worse? There are so many Arab countries. I love this Zionist argument, Jen, if you could please debunk it. There are so many Arab countries and so much land around Israel. If you threw a pin in a pool, that's what Israel is.
Yeah. See, I don't want to be even like, I didn't know you wanted to even talk about this because like this isn't worthy of a response to me. First of all, him using the phrase Arab countries, what is that? I've gone off on this a lot. I do not like the phrase Arab. But I definitely, and he is saying it in an extremely bigoted way. So, again, like I don't want to get, yeah.
That's the best you got, Kyle?
Try a pride parade in Gaza.
That's the best you got?
Yeah, that's just.
Got to come up with better shit, man. I'm sorry.
Oh, try a pride parade in Gaza.
Yeah. I guess Kyle decided to comment now and not earlier in the show when Amir kissed the soldier's hand and then he got murdered. Yeah, that was
that does it. Yeah. I don't want to entertain this. I didn't know, like, first of all, it's old. Second of all, screw Howard Stern. And to debunk the Arab myth of all the Arab countries. Yeah, that's where they are. They're in Western Asia. That whole group of countries that he's referring to as Arab countries. That whole portion of the globe is full of those Arab people. Yeah.
Emphasizing his point with profanity, of course, Stern argued that Israel was created in the middle of a desert in a portion of the world no one wanted until Jews showed up there.
See, I don't want to be entertaining this. Anybody watching our show, I do believe understands the concept of Nakba and oppression and colonialism and Zion-Nazi state of Israel. So to even yeah.
That he's aggravating. Yeah, he's a bitch. He's always been a bitch and he always will be. The Palestinians are these Arabs that could live in, again, here's the whole thing about the Nakba. His attitude as a Zionist scumbag from Long Island, because of course he is, the Palestinians are these Arabs that could live in Egypt because, we should just tell them where to go. They could live in Saudi Arabia.
No, they're all interchangeable because they're all Arabs. Mm-hmm. It's all interchangeable.
But guess what? Those countries don't want them either. Yeah.
Also not true.
Israel has a little tiny country and it bugs the shit out of Roger Waters. He can't fucking deal with it. No, you can't deal with the fact that your ideology is genocidal, pathetic, and dying. And people
Where do you want the Jews to go? You want them to just go back to the concentration camp. Just how ridiculously incendiary. Are we done with this yet?
How much more we got here?
This is terrible. This is terrible. And I don't want to be promoting this.
No, we have to make a point because he's about to go off the air. I want people to remember who Howard Stern really is. Colin, anything else? Jews go to the dark side of the moon and live. Okay, we'll close with this. Waters, who supports a boycott of Israel for engaging in apartheid, correct, against the Palestinians, similarly chastised the Alan Parsons Project when the band played in Israel.
Exactly. As well he should.
And that's why Roger Waters is a hero and should always be remembered as such. And not
just Howard Stern is Jewish.
Couldn't have a more obvious name, but yes. Roger Waters, who gave us one of the greatest rock albums of all time with Dark Side of the Moon. And of course, Comfortably Numb, which is one of the greatest rock songs ever, in my opinion. Look, Howard Stern lasted a hell of a lot longer than he should have, but clearly no one's listening anymore, except maybe the Zion-Nazis. And that's just not a big enough audience to get people to stick around. So, bon voyage, you Zionist scumbag.
Good riddance.
May never be heard from again. You sucked then, you suck now, you have no legacy. And for as big of an asshole scumbag that Don Imus was, Don Imus at least gave back. Don Imus owns about a 1,000-acre ranch that his widowed wife overseas. And you know what they do with that ranch? It's a safe haven for children with cancer. That's his legacy. Your legacy is going to be one of a no-talent shock jock who got lucky at the right time by saying grotesque shit, and it turns out that as grotesque as shit as you actually said, you were even more grotesque as a human because of your ethnic superiority complex that you supposedly believe in. Well, much like Stern's career, Zionism is dying, and it can't die fast enough. We've got one more story to cover.
Do we? Because it's late.
It is, but yes, we do.
It's late.
It is.
Okay.
But it's one that I think you'll actually enjoy. So any chance we get to talk about our very special guest, Norman Finkelstein, is always a big deal. But if you throw our awesome guest, Mr. Super Vest Man, you know, whenever Dr. West sits down, it's a privilege. When you get the two of them to sit down, and that's magic. And this is their opinion about how we deal specifically with the bullshit protesting Zionists in New York. How should they be dealt with, Jen? Well, let's hear what Mr. Finkelstein has to say.
Well, if you look at the public opinion polls in Israel, Israel is probably the most polled place on God's earth. If you look at the public opinion polls, about 1/2 of Israeli Jews believe that Israel, the IDF, the Israel Defense Forces, should commit genocide in Gaza. That's not an exaggeration. The question that was put to Israelis was very concrete and succinct. When the IDF enters a city, should it kill every single person in the city? 47% of Israeli Jews said yes to that question. Another question was, do you believe there are any innocents in Gaza? Any innocents? It was asked of Israelis across the board, including non-Jewish Israelis. 62% said there are no innocents in Gaza.
So when we say that we must sever this relationship, we mean just that.
You know, this was a discussion, this was a debate actually between Norman and Dr. West. And on the issue, and it's a free speech debate. And I actually disagree with Norman and agree with Dr. West. So it's interesting. I don't know what what clip this is of that, but that was the gist of it. Is, I mean, I haven't seen this clip. So is that what he's going to be talking about? The debate?
Yeah, but
Okay.
I think it is important to point out that there was a poll that was released earlier this week about how Israelis feel about Palestinians. And over 2/3 of them believe that they should just be massacred.
Oh, yeah. 85% of Israelis are totally supportive of ethnically cleansing Gaza and the West Bank. Oh,
and
yeah.
And 2/3 of them are totally okay with them just being massacred.
Yeah, they don't care how. They don't I don't think the majority of them want to necessarily go kill people, but they don't really care as long as they're gone. 85% of them are okay with ethnic cleansing.
If you factor away the non-Jewish respondents, it would come to about 70%. If you turn to Gaza now, Israel, for better or for worse, it has a citizen army. That means that army is representative of Israeli society. Do you feel that those students are obliged to be inclusive of child killers? I'm curious, because I know you're very inclusive. Maybe your tent stretches from here to the other side of the galaxy. Do you believe that they should be inclusive of child killers?
I don't like how he's phrasing that question.
Yeah, that's a hell of a way of characterizing it, though. Because,
Exactly.
You see, part of the problem here, brother, is that, I mean, the history of religions, which has been, for the most part, the history of barbarism in terms of institutional religions, they have specialized in shunning people. And once you begin to shun, then the next step is dehumanization, subjugation, and you're just redoing the same cycle that you yourself were resisting from the very beginning.
I think that that is an excellent point that he is making. And while I have, as I would imagine you do too, Jen, blood rage towards Zionists, I honestly I would pay them no mind. I honest to God would pay them no mind if they didn't have systemic control over our politics. If that was not the case, I think most people would just ignore them and let them live in their insulated communities as they so desire to do anyway. I wouldn't care. But the fact of the matter is, they affect our daily lives. And I believe that that is the big issue here, where I think both Norm is correct and Dr. West is correct. Am I wrong?
I mean, well, the argument essentially, and this is, again, I haven't seen, we'll let the clip finish, but I know that what they're discussing, the statement that Norm originally had made is that certain speakers, when you allow certain people to speak that have done things that are, that have committed a Holocaust and perpetrated genocide, when you let those people speak, that it's desecrating the dead, that it's disrespectful to the dead. And that was really what his argument is. And I don't necessarily disagree that whether or not it's disrespectful to the dead. I mean, even if it were, but the problem is, and this is what then Dr. West points out, is we haven't had an American president that wouldn't be classified as a war criminal in generations. So then by that standard, then nobody should be allowed to go and speak in public if you've committed this. And so I agree with Dr. West in this general discussion, because I think, and that was even the way that Norman phrased it, saying, oh, you support child killers, like that. Like, no, that's not the premise. The premise is a free speech premise. But
I think it's also easier for Dr. West as a true practicing Christian versus Norman, who comes from that Zionist world. And I think for him, it's a little bit more personal. And that's why he puts it that way. And it's understandable. Like I said,
look, I'm free speech absolute. So I am not for blocking people from speaking on a campus. And I don't know if this clip shows it, but the woman who's also there on the other side of Norman, she actually gets involved in this discussion and says something that I actually wrote an article about a few years ago, which is that the premise of free speech isn't just for the speaker, it's for the listener. So you have a right to hear all these different ideas and opinions just as much as someone has the right to say them. And when you block certain people from speaking, what you're saying is to some people, you're not going to be allowed to hear that now. And that's the problem. So yeah, I mean, I'm not familiar with this exact clip where it cuts off.
We'll continue.
If we shunned every American who supported the extermination of indigenous peoples, there's not a whole lot of folk left in the history of the If we shun the majority of Americans who supported the enslavement of black people, the lynching of black people, Jim Crow and Jane Crow, who's left? That's a small group.
No, this is a rhetorical evasion.
No, it's not. I'm speaking directly to your question. I'm just not agreeing with you.
Would you cavort and carouse? Would you cavort and carouse with a child killer? I'm curious. I don't think that's a trivial question.
No.
You wouldn't.
No.
You would shun them, correct?
I would do more than shun, brother. I'd probably cuss them out and lose my Holy Ghost and kick their behind in the name of Jesus. But the point is, that's not normative. That's not the only model that I want everybody to proceed. I want to love my way through the darkness. I don't believe in shunning, even given the crimes that people commit. If you got a different view, that's cool. I'm with you. We in the same demonstrations. We go to jail together, and we have fascinating conversations on child killers and how do you respond to child killers. That's all.
Love
Is that direct?
I'm not sure.
Oh, you're not.
Okay. This is just so that's
I can listen to the two of them talk.
So happy.
I mean,
but I agree with Dr. West. At the end of the day, it isn't about whether you I wouldn't carouse and cavort with child murderers, but my wanting to personally associate with people is irrelevant to the fact of whether or not those people should be allowed to speak, right? Like one is not the same. Like there's a whole bunch of people that I don't want to hang out with. Most people, really, and people who know me know that. I really, most
made
people.
that very clear.
But that doesn't, right? But that doesn't mean that I don't support all those people's rights to speak. I just don't want to hang out with them. And so to phrase it in that way to Dr. West is kind of funny to me. Like, would you cavort with the baby killers? No. And I love that he even had to reference Black Jesus.
Because Jesus was a lot more black than he was white, if he existed.
Well, it just cracks me up when it's just funny.
If there ever was an intellectual podcast that I would listen to, it would be the two of them going back and forth. Like these are two, you know what makes them great intellectuals more than anything else? They're not pretentious.
No.
And that's what I like.
No, and the truth is they're both on the same team. They both believe in justice and dignity and humanity.
They do. And if the world was a little more like Mr. Finkelstein and Mr. West, we would obviously be in a much better place. It's not the world we have, but it is the world that we can fight for.
It's true he did, because it's not hard to get Dr. West to laugh. Norman's definitely a tougher nut to crack for that, right? Like, so that is kind of funny because, Dr. That's just so great. And they have been arrested together. They go way back.
Oh, yeah. Well, that is one of the more memorable lines. One of the more memorable lines that Norman delivered on our channel when he was a guest. He came on when Dr. West was running for president, and he said he talked about his knowledge and how his knowledge is a mile long, but it's also a mile thick instead of paper thick. And I thought that was very telling. It is true though. That's how I feel about Dr. West though. Like it was a very endearing compliment for sure.
Yeah, no, they are definitely friends.
Yeah. And as I said, as you've said, if we're going to live in a world where things can get better, if you listen to those two intellectual giants,
I just love that carouse and cavort with baby killers. And Dr. West's answer was so good.
We have had the privilege of having those two gentlemen as guests on our channel is probably one of the great highlights of what we've been able to accomplish building this channel, because they are two of the very best. It doesn't get better than them. It also doesn't get better than our amazing audience who has stuck with us the entire evening. We knew we'd save a good one for the end, so we really appreciate you guys hanging around. But as you know, we have to continue to grow. We passed, during the live stream, 48,000 subscribers. We are...
Woo! Woo!
Send up that ladder. But remember, we need all the help we can get.
Maybe they'll send me half a plaque for the 50K.
Jen's starting to get a little bit more reasonable in her expectations. Make sure to go over to patreon.com/revolutionary change for as little as $5 a month. You could become a supporter of our small but mighty and growing channel, as you can see by the numbers. And we do have some additional super chats that did come in along the way. So we have to get. And of course,
I saw them. People were saying that I don't like the impersonations before, and I did put it in the chat. So this is the thing. I don't mind the impersonations. I don't mind when he does it. I just don't want to talk to those people. I don't want to be in a conversation with Bill Clinton or Donald Trump.
Of course
I don't want to. And I am not good at a comedy shtick. I am not like, we are not like Laurel and Hardy. You know what I mean? Like, I am not a comedy. We are not a comedy duo.
Donald James, always great to see you, sir. If Mamdani wins and proves that progressive policies work, it could set a new precedent for us. 20 months and counting. Cheers. Thank you so much, my friend. And yes, I do think a lot is riding on his race. I do. I think if he wins, it could be monumental. We'll see what happens. S. Kolachuk, again, thank you for the 2 Canadian A. This show can turn the world on with its smile. That's very sweet of you to say.
And the reference is extremely touching. Do you know what that's a reference to, right?
No.
You know who could turn the world on with her smile? Do you not know that, Peter? Oh, Peter.
Magic Johnson?
No, it's Mary Tyler Moore.
Oh, how the hell would I know that?
Because that's who turns the world on with her smile is Mary Tyler Moore. And how could you
Mary
not know
Tyler
that?
Moore show was on when you were a kid, not when I was a kid.
I don't care when it was on. That's who turns the world on with her smile.
So you
Crazy
said.
person. Oh, I know. Tell me that.
Sing us a $5 song.
Rachel, he's telling me what.
Yeah. Thank you for the $5, Mr. Piano Man. Always a pleasure. JG 1982 with the $5. Way more than a coincidence with Pam. A coincidence, need a new word. There are no coincidences. Just like history doesn't repeat itself, but it often rhymes. JG 1982 again with the $5. The Norm Fink argument on slave rebellions and October 7th is a powerful argument.
Very much so. Very, very much so.
Agreed. Ozma, we love you. Thank you for the 1999. Thanks, Jen and Pete. Don't hate anything profound to say. Been a tough day, so thank you both for the presence. Thank you for being
Don't
here.
have anything profound to say. Been a tough day, so thank you both.
It got text. She typed it in a way that I couldn't follow.
Here's the thing, Ozma, I so feel you. I am so not nimble with my fingers. So text, like for me, when I'm in a comment thing, if I'm on my tablet, forget it. It's just, I feel you.
On Saturday night, I will definitely cover the next iteration of South Park. They really went after ICE hard. They went after Trump again. And of course, Eric Cartman became Charlie Kirk. And we're going to get into that one. Charlie Kirk, of course, praised. Ed Asner was great.
And Tony D's music channel, if you go back to one of the earliest days of this show, when we first started it, we actually covered Ed Asner. We've covered him a couple of times, but we specifically covered him when he died. And we also did talk about him when we had the SAG-AFTRA actors and people on, the union people on, because Ed Asner was a major union person and one of the biggest union people in that industry. So
yeah. No,
big fan. Also, NC, again, thank you, Tony D, for seeing the link because of who turns the world on with her smile. See, he knows.
What
that's
nonsense.
Do you know that's where Ed Asner is from, the Mary Tyler Moore show?
No, I mean, I know he's a very beloved actor and he was a good guy. So
Do you not know? Have you not heard of Lou Grant?
no, not
Oh,
really.
good God. Oh, good God.
Sorry.
That was the head of the show. Mary Tyler Moore was the news. Oh, for God's sake, people save me. Save me.
Yeah. You're just old.
I'm not
Sorry.
old. That's
You
just a thing that you should just know. That's the whole point. Lou Grant was was the main character. And that's from, no, I know Ed Asner's done lots of things, but the reason that he was brought up now was in reference to, because we were just talking about Mary Tyler Moore. And the character from Mary Tyler Moore was Lou Grant. So that's why I know that Ed Asner's done lots of different stuff.
Well, I mean, stop fucking around with the shit. I'm not culturally bankrupt. I just have select shows and stuff that I'm familiar with.
So funny.
But some. I cannot stand that audio kickback. I don't know what the hell goes on your end, but it is annoying as
I don't know what you're talking about. I don't hear anything.
Well, now it's gone, but nevertheless.
I think you're hearing things. I think you should get your hearing checked.
Maybe I should. See, instead of saying, no, my hearing's fine, I say, no, maybe I should. Smash that like button.
I don't know about that. Really? Really? I don't know.
I like Dick Van Dyke.
Love Dick Van Dyke. But I don't know that I would say I prefer Mary Tyler Moore on Dick Van Dyke versus her own show when she was like, Total Women's Lib. And not to mention, then I have to get into the whole like Valerie Harper Rhoda component, Cloris Leachman. I mean, that whole group. Love those
guys.
ladies.
Cross your fingers and your toes as tightly as you can. Dick Van Dyke, December 13th. December 13th.
What about that?
He will turn 100 years old. It's pretty amazing.
Yeah, it is.
He is a huge progressive. He was a huge Bernie supporter. Just a good guy. And
yeah, he is.
Mary Poppins. We do have to give a shout out.
That's my most favorite Disney movie of all time is Mary Poppins. And and largely because of him, but I mean, Julie Andrews, Mary, do you know Mary Poppins? Do you know who Mary Poppins is?
Yes, okay. I know Mary Poppins.
Do you know that she's practically perfect in every way?
Just a spoonful of sugar helps the medicine go down in the most
delightful. But I mean, it's like if you're, if you don't know who makes who smile makes the world turn. I don't know that who's practically perfect in every way, and it's Mary.
Well, Julie Andrews hit it twice out of the park, back-to-back years, doing Mary Poppins and then The Sound of Music. So it's like, okay, well, she did real good. But with that said, S. Kolachuk with the 5 Canadian. I enjoy when Pete doesn't get the Pink Floyd and Genesis lyrics when I post them. Well, I mean, I get some of them. It just depends. Are you referencing Duke, or are you referencing Phil Collins' No Jacket Required? It just depends on which one you're going for. But if you have to give me one song by Genesis, I'm taking Land of Confusion.
He would, because he always goes with the things that are around his time. And that's 80s Genesis.
Land of Confusion is a great song.
It is a great song, but that's later Genesis.
Well, it depends on whether you consider In the Air Tonight to be Phil Collins or Genesis.
It is most definitely Phil Collins.
But technically it's Genesis. Technically it is Genesis. So
I don't know that.
If you're asking me Phil Collins, I would definitely say In the Air Tonight. But for my money, I'll say In the Air Tonight for Phil Collins, Land of Confusion for Genesis. That's my pick. And for Pink Floyd,
if you think so.
I do say so.
I don't agree. For me, Pink Floyd is Wish You Were Here, and that's my favorite Pink Floyd album. Whatever, man.
As far as I'm concerned, it's just another brick in the wall. That's all there is to it. Smash that like button, share, subscribe to all those things we ask you to do. We love you all. I'll see you Saturday, and
Free Palestine.
Good night, guys.